क्या आपको पता है कि इंडिया में जो रेड कॉरिडोर है, आई मीन द एरियाज हेविली अफेक्टेड बाय लेफ्ट विंग एक्सट्रीमिज्म, वो 2005 में ना ओवर 200 डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स में फैला हुआ था। बट गेस व्हाट, 2016 आते आते इट हैज मैसिवली कंट्रैक्टेड टू जस्ट 2 districts.
Yeah, just 2.
Think about that for a second. Like for decades, these dense forests hid invisible threats. वो पूरी administration को paralyze कर देते थे. पर अब the shadows in the jungle are actually shrinking. मैं तो सोच रही थी कि ये इतना बड़ा shift कैसे हुआ?
And it's an unprecedented shift, honestly. We are witnessing a fundamental transformation in India's internal security landscape.
Right.
It proves that when the state upgrades its strategy, from purely military tactics to a multi-pronged developmental approach, the ground reality completely changes.
Exactly. और आज की डीप डाइव का मिशन यही है. We are going to decode the 4 absolute biggest, most complex pillars of internal security, specifically from a UPSC GS Mains perspective.
Okay, sounds good.
First, we are looking at left-wing extremism or LWE. Second, the Armed Forces Special Powers Act or AFSPA. Third, insurgency in Northeast India. And finally, number 4, the newly announced high-powered demography mission. We are going to break down how these policies actually work on the ground, the mechanisms behind them, और उनका future impact क्या होगा. So let's jump right in, है ना?
Ready when you are. The evolution of these security frameworks is fascinating once you look past the basic headlines.
So true, yaar. Let's start with topic 1, which is left-wing extremism. The broad micro theme here is state and non-state actors. We really need to look at the roots and the incredible decline of LWE.
Right.
To basically, LWE, commonly known as Maoists globally or Naxalites here in India, is an armed insurgency. ये start हुआ था back in the 1967 uprising in Naxalbari, West Bengal. इनका main objective, democratic state structure को violence के through overthrow करना है.
Right. And to truly understand how this sustained itself for so long, you have to visualize the ground reality.
Okay.
Imagine a remote, deeply forested village in Jharkhand. For decades, the state apparatus like doctors, teachers, roads, they just didn't reach them. The core issue was Jal, Jungle, Zameen, meaning water, forest and land.
वैसे यार ये जल जंगल जमीन का मुद्दा आज भी इतना relevant क्यों है? Like why is it still the core?
Because it's about existential survival. Outsiders were coming in and extracting resources, mining and timber, and the locals felt entirely alienated. That socioeconomic vacuum, the lack of health, education, employment, that became the fertile ground where LWE thrived.
Oh wow. But the narrative in those exact same villages is flipping today, right?
Completely flipping.
Like instead of insurgent training camps, you now have Eklavya model residential schools.
Yes.
You are literally taking a tribal youth out of an alienated environment and giving them modern education.
Yes.
Which, physically disrupts the Maoist recruitment pipeline.
Exactly.
Samjhe?
Exactly.
That is the mechanism driving this 89% reduction in LWE violence between 2010 and 25.
Historically, the emergence of LWE was purely fueled by these socioeconomic inequalities and the massive failure of government policies.
Right.
A classic example is the failure to properly implement the provisions of the Panchayat's extension to the Scheduled Areas Act, or PESA, 1996, in states like Jharkhand.
Wait, you mentioned PESA. I've always wondered, how does a 1996 Panchayat law actually stop a Maoist insurgency today? What's the direct link there?
It's all about leverage. PESA decentralizes power, granting self-governance to tribal communities.
Okay.
If implemented effectively, it removes the very grievance that Maoists exploit. When local Gram Sabhas actually control their own minor forest produce and land, the Maoist narrative of an oppressive state stealing your resources completely falls apart.
Oh, I see.
You disarm their ideology, not just their foot soldiers.
That makes total sense. So basically, catch ye hai ki it's an ideological defeat. But the state is also hitting them hard, tactically, hai na?
Oh, absolutely.
The core logic behind the recent decline rests on 3 integrated pillars: security, development, and community. On the security front, there's the National Policy and Action Plan of 2015, but more importantly, the Samadhan Strategy, which has 8 pillars ranging from smart leadership to actionable intelligence.
Yes, and that is paired with focused kinetic operations.
Like what?
like Operation Octopus and Operation Double Bull to flush out top commanders from the forests.
Okay, so if a listener is writing a UPSC mains answer on this, what is the absolute most impactful point about the Samadhan strategy they need to include?
The golden keyword is actionable intelligence. You need to emphasize that Samadhan is not just a military doctrine.
Right.
It is an integrated, tech-driven governance framework. It relies on dashboard-based KPIs.
Oh wow, so like corporate management tools.
Exactly. The state is fighting this insurgency with modern management principles, GIS tracking, GPS, and tech, not just boots on the ground.
Love that. Tech is replacing brute force.
Yeah?
Speaking of development, that's equally aggressive now. We have 178 Eklavya model residential schools functional in LWE-affected districts, backed by special central assistance. Then there's the Civic Action Program, or CAP, to bridge the trust gap between security forces and the local community.
But yeah, it's not all sunshine.
No, definitely not. The difficult forest terrain of Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and Odisha still provides natural cover. And these non-state actors are getting smarter with tech, right?
They absolutely are. It's a cat-and-mouse game. Which brings up a critical challenge. Non-state actors are heavily misusing the dark web now.
Wait, really? How? Exactly. Like, what is a Maoist insurgent in a dense forest doing on the dark web? Thoda detail mein samjhao.
Well, they aren't just sitting in the forest anymore. They have urban networks. They use the dark web's anonymity for three main things.
Okay.
Generating and spreading sophisticated fake news to malign democratic institutions, discreetly recruiting tech-savvy urban youth to their ideology,
Wow.
and most dangerously, using virtual currencies like crypto to bypass traditional banking for money laundering and terror financing. It makes tracking their funding pipelines incredibly difficult.
Oh man. So the battle lines have moved from the jungles to the servers.
Exactly.
By the way, guys, ये समाधान strategy और dark web वाला point सच में दिमाग हिला देने वाला था. अगर आपको भी ऐसे ही complex UPSC topics को easily decode करना है, तो अभी subscribe करो और notification on कर लो, so that कोई भी deep dive miss ना हो. It really helps us bring you this content. चलो, अब आगे बढ़ते हैं.
Yeah, let's keep going.
So another massive hurdle is the trust deficit, which is where things like the Forest Rights Act 2006 come into play for the way ahead. Also, I keep seeing references to the Bandipodhyaya Committee and the Greyhounds. How do these two specific examples add value to a mains answer?
They are the perfect contrast to show the examiner you understand the dual strategy of the Indian state.
Right.
Greyhounds represent the hard state approach. They are the pinnacle of specialized, terrain-adapted tactical security forces.
On the flip side, the Bandipodhyaya Committee represents the soft state approach. I see.
It highlights the socio-economic empathy required through tribal-friendly land policies. Using both proves you understand that security and development must walk hand in hand.
So it's a carrot and stick approach, but highly modernized. Listen up, pro tip for your notes. I want you to pause the audio and practice saying this out loud. Practice saying Samadhan strategy and Paisa Act integration.
Yes, rehearsing those exact terms builds the muscle memory you need for the exam.
In short, this idea shows how LWE का उदय विकास की कमी से हुआ और इसका अंत स्मार्ट सिक्योरिटी और कम्युनिटी एंगेजमेंट से हो रहा है. समझे?
Spot on. Let's pivot to the next logical step.
Yeah.
If development and local trust are defeating LWE in central India, what happens when the state relies heavily on absolute military power to maintain order?
That brings us perfectly to topic 2. The Armed Forces Special Powers Act, or AFSPA. The broad micro theme here is balancing security and rights. We are diving deep into the AFSPA security versus human rights debate.
Right.
For context, AFSPA is a 1958 law that grants extraordinary powers like the authority to use lethal force and immunity from prosecution to the military to maintain law and order in what the government designates as disturbed areas.
And to really grasp the tension here, you have to look at an operational scenario. Imagine a highly volatile, porous border region.
Okay.
An insurgent group launches a surprise attack and blends into a village. The army needs operational flexibility to respond instantly, conduct searches without civilian warrants, and neutralize the threat.
Right, obviously.
Security imperative.
But on the exact same street, ordinary citizens are living their lives. If innocent people are caught in the crossfire or detained without quick legal recourse, their fundamental rights are severely violated.
Which is the rights imperative.
Exactly. That is the rights imperative.
The friction there is immense. And this isn't just history, it's very current. The Ministry of Home Affairs recently extended AFSPA in parts of Manipur, Arunachal Pradesh, and Nagaland for another 6 months. Though it's a good sign that it was completely lifted from Tripura, Meghalaya, and Mizoram. The background debate is fierce. Supporters argue it enables rapid response, provides operational flexibility, and protects personnel operating in chaotic zones. Plus, it has been upheld as constitutional by the Supreme Court.
But the critics point out that prolonged deployment normalizes emergency powers. It impacts fundamental rights, and the limited prosecution mechanisms create a perception of zero accountability on the ground.
On that note, one thing that always comes up in mains is state autonomy. How exactly should an aspirant frame the state autonomy argument regarding AFSPA?
It's a core federalism issue. Law and order is strictly a state subject under the Indian Constitution.
Right.
When the union government unilaterally declares an area disturbed and deploys central armed forces with overriding powers, it effectively bypasses the elected state government's authority. This creates immense friction in cooperative federalism.
Oh, I get it. It's like the center overriding the state's domain. But you mentioned earlier that the Supreme Court upheld it. Why did the 1997 Naga People's Movement judgment validate AFSPA as constitutional?
Because a court recognized a harsh reality. The state has a sovereign duty to protect the nation from internal disturbances that are simply too severe for regular civilian police to handle.
Okay.
However, it wasn't a blank check. The court mandated strict do's and don'ts, basically safeguards on the use of force, to ensure the military doesn't operate entirely outside the constitutional framework.
Which brings us to the core logic of accountability. In 1984, the Sebastian M. Hongre case showed that security personnel can indeed be held accountable, despite AFSPA immunity.
Yes.
But the real game changer was the 2016 extrajudicial execution case. How did that judgment specifically fix accountability regarding Section 6 immunity?
So before 2016, there was a massive perception that Section 6 provided a blanket, absolute shield from prosecution for the armed forces.
Right.
The Supreme Court dismantled that. They ruled that an alleged fake encounter or extrajudicial killing cannot be shielded by this section. It essentially mandated that every single death in a disturbed area must be investigated by a civilian body, ensuring the rule of law applies even in conflict zones.
Wow, that is a massive shift. So the real-world impact and way ahead require strict compliance. Things like presenting arrested persons before magistrates within 24 hours, and there's a strong push for using the CRPF for routine law and order.
Yes.
But wait, I have to challenge this. Isn't shifting this to the CRPF just moving the burden? CRPF is already overstretched, yaar. Is that actually practical?
It is highly practical when you look at training doctrines. The CRPF is specifically trained for riot control, crowd management, and internal security duties alongside civilian populations.
Right.
They use graded force. The army, on the other hand, is trained for lethal combat, to eliminate external enemies. Using the army for routine civilian unrest dulls their conventional fighting edge and drastically increases the risk of human rights violations. It's about using a scalpel instead of a sledgehammer.
Okay, that analogy clarifies that perfectly. Scalpel instead of a sledgehammer. Finally, in our conclusion for this topic, we have to mention the committees.
Important ones, yes.
The Justice J.S. Verma Committee in 2013 recommended that sexual violence by armed forces should be dealt with under ordinary criminal law. But the big ones are the Jeevan Reddy Committee of 2005 and the second ARC of 2007. They both recommended repealing AFSPA and merging its necessary powers into the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, or UAPA 1967.
But why merge it? What is the logic behind repealing it just to put it into UAPA? The logic is primarily psychological and optics-based. Over the decades, the acronym AFSPA itself became synonymous with oppression in certain regions.
Oh, I see.
By repealing it, the government would remove that heavy symbol of alienation. By merging the strictly necessary operational powers into the UAPA, you maintain national security, but you do it under a civilian anti-terror legal framework rather than a military statute. It de-escalates the perception of military rule.
Brilliant strategy. Okay, guys, pause the audio and practice saying this crucial line. Practice saying, Jeevan Reddy and second ARC recommended repeal of AFSPA.
Using committee names is exactly how you score those extra marks.
In short, this idea shows how AFSPA national security के लिए जरूरी है, लेकिन इसे democratic values और strict accountability के साथ balance करना ही होगा.
Absolutely.
Now, if AFSPA is the heavy medication, we need to look at the underlying disease. That brings us to our next pillar.
Yes. Moving on to the complexities of the Northeast.
Topic 3 is insurgency in Northeast India. The broad micro theme here is conflict and peace building in the Northeast. So, a quick definition. Insurgency is essentially a violent armed rebellion by citizens who are opposing their own country's government or structure.
And to ground this in reality, you have to look beyond just the state versus rebel dynamic.
Okay.
Consider the tragic, massive ethnic clashes between the Meitei and Kuki communities in Manipur, or the violent border skirmishes between Assam and Mizoram police forces. These events clearly show that insurgency and conflict here are heavily rooted in intense, historical rivalries between indigenous communities over land, resources, and ethnic identity. It is deeply fractured.
Web of massive challenges. You have these deep ethnic rivalries, plus widespread alienation from the mainstream due to decades of AFSPA militarization. You've got extremely porous international borders that make arms smuggling and illegal migration incredibly easy. Plus, historically, a severe lack of effective governance and infrastructure, like literally struggling to find proper medical facilities in parts of Nagaland. But one thing that confuses a lot of people is militant group rivalries.
Yeah, that's a big issue.
How do factions like the NSCN make peace talks so difficult?
It creates a severe fragmentation problem. Let's say the government negotiates and signs a peace accord with one major faction, like the NSCM-IM. Immediately a rival faction, like NSCN-K, might reject the deal entirely and escalate violence just to prove their dominance and derail the process.
Oh man.
It becomes a hydra. You cannot achieve comprehensive, lasting peace unless all warring factions are simultaneously brought to the negotiating table, which requires incredible diplomatic maneuvering.
It's like trying to put out a fire while someone else is pouring petrol on it.
Exactly.
But the core logic of the government's recent approach has pivoted heavily towards peace building and integration. First, through landmark peace deals like the NLFT agreement in Tripura, the Bodo Peace Accord, and the Karbi-Anglong Peace Agreement.
Notice how those accords work. They don't just ask for armed surrender.
What else do they do?
They restructure political representation and inject massive financial packages for local development. That's the actual mechanism of peace.
Exactly.
And the second approach is strategic connectivity. We're talking schemes like Udan for flights, the Vande Bharat trains, massive infrastructure like the Bogibil and Dhola Sadia bridges, plus the National Sports University in Manipur.
Yeah.
And the third is cultural connect and regional cooperation, basically shifting from a look east to a very active act east policy. But tell me, how does an economic foreign policy like Act East actually act as a tool to reduce local insurgency?
Because it fundamentally changes the geography of opportunity. By opening up massive trade and transit routes with Southeast Asia, Act East transforms the Northeast from a landlocked, isolated, forgotten corner into a booming economic gateway.
Okay, when the local youth suddenly have lucrative, legal, economic opportunities through cross-border trade, agro-processing, and tourism, the financial appeal of joining insurgent extortion rackets drops to zero. Economics drives the peace.
So you replace the black economy with a booming formal economy. That's powerful. Another term gaining traction for the way ahead is desecuritization. This sounds super academic for UPSC. Can you decode this concept for us?
Absolutely. Desecuritization means fundamentally shifting the state's mindset at the borders.
Right.
Instead of a purely military, barbed wire, shoot-on-sight mentality, you shift to managed, legal, cross-border cooperation and trade. You treat the border as a thriving zone of economic and cultural exchange rather than a paranoid war zone.
That makes a lot of sense.
It drastically reduces alienation, especially among tribes whose ancestral lands naturally straddle these international borders.
Speaking of reducing alienation, we're seeing a lot of cultural pushes, like getting the Moidams of Choradeo on UNESCO's World Heritage List and celebrating the Ashtalakshmi Mahotsav. How do these cultural recognitions actually reduce the feeling of alienation?
Alienation stems from a very real emotional grievance. Delhi doesn't care about our culture. They only care about our borders.
Right.
When the central government actively promotes northeastern textiles, secures international UNESCO tags for their ancient heritage, and celebrates their festivals on a national stage, it powerfully integrates them into the core narrative of Indian civilizational pride. It replaces systemic alienation with systemic inclusion.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Now, for the real-world impact and conclusion, experts are suggesting a political step, which is amending the Northeastern Council Act 2002. Why is there a need to amend an Economic Council Act to solve insurgency?
So originally, the NEC had a specific statutory mandate to help resolve interstate disputes and conflicts.
Okay.
But a 2002 amendment somewhat diluted that power, forcing the council to focus almost purely on regional economic planning. Given the recent violent border disputes like Assam-Mizoram, experts argue we urgently need to restore that conflict resolution provision. States need a dedicated, neutral statutory platform to sort out differences without their police forces firing at each other.
Makes complete sense. Guys, take a breath and practice saying this phrase out loud. Practice saying desecuritization and cultural connect via Act East policy.
Excellent phrasing. To demonstrate a modern understanding of the region.
In short, this idea shows how Northeast की समस्या सिर्फ हथियारों की नहीं है, इसका असली समाधान विकास, connectivity और cultural integration में है. So that's cool, na?
Definitely.
Now, we can't talk about the porous borders of the Northeast without addressing what flows through them.
Precisely. Which brings us to the most pressing demographic challenge we face today.
Topic 4 is the high-powered demography mission, and the broad micro-theme is tackling illegal immigration. First, a quick definition. An illegal immigrant is essentially someone who enters a sovereign country without valid travel documents, usually in a clandestine or hidden manner.
And to visualize why this is an existential crisis for some regions, look at certain border villages in Assam.
Okay.
Over a few decades, due to continuous unchecked infiltration, the local demography completely flipped. The indigenous communities suddenly woke up to find themselves as a minority in their own ancestral lands.
That's intense.
This isn't just a political talking point about numbers. It triggers a deep, visceral fear regarding the total loss of Assamese identity, culture, and political voice.
It's a genuine existential threat for the locals. And the government is escalating its response. Recently, during his Independence Day address, the PM announced the launch of a high-powered demography mission to tackle this. To give you an idea of the scale, while there is no updated official census on this, back in 2016, the government stated there were around 20 million illegal Bangladeshi migrants staying in India.
Yeah, that's a massive number.
The background causes for this massive influx are highly complex. We have incredibly difficult riverine borders with Bangladesh, Nepal, and Myanmar. Add to that extreme poverty, unemployment, and religious persecution in neighboring countries. Plus, you have the historical mass migrations of 1947 and 1971. And let's be real, local vote bank politics often provided political patronage, making detection almost impossible.
And the core logic here revolves around severe, multidimensional concerns. National security is the absolute top priority. We've seen extremist groups exploit vulnerable migrants, like the Rohingya, for terror links and radicalization, alongside running massive smuggling and human trafficking syndicates.
Right.
Then there's the demographic shift causing severe ethnic friction, the massive socio-economic burden on our public services and welfare schemes, and the distortion of the local labor market, where immigrants displace local workers by accepting illegally low wages.
To counter this, we are seeing major legislative and tech initiatives. We have the proposed Immigration and Foreigners Act 2025, aimed at streamlining detection and deportation. There's the NRC process, the CAAF 2019, and the Foreigners' Tribunals, or FTs, which adjudicate nationality.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to focus on the border itself. The government is deploying the Comprehensive Integrated Border Management System, or CIBMS. How exactly does CIBMS work on riverine borders? Because you can't build a brick wall on a shifting river.
Exactly. Physical fences are useless against shifting hydrogeography. So CBMS creates an invisible electronic fence. It integrates microaerostat balloons in the sky, thermal imagers that detect body heat at night, underground vibration sensors, and sonar arrays in the water.
Wait, sonar in the river?
Yes. So even if there is pitch-black dense fog or intense river currents, any infiltration immediately triggers a localized alarm to the nearest border outpost. It takes the human error out of border guarding.
Tech literally guarding the borders. But once someone is inside, it goes to the foreigners' tribunals. How can we make the functioning of these FTs faster and more transparent? Because right now the pendency is huge.
The key is total digitization. You have to digitize all historical legacy data like the 1951 NRC and decades of electoral rolls so that verification by a judge is instant, rather than waiting months for physical files.
Makes sense.
Second, we need strict, time-bound mandates for case disposal. And finally, standardizing the burden of proof required so that decisions are uniform, transparent, and completely unbiased across different tribunals.
Now, looking at the way ahead and real-world impact, experts say India critically needs a national refugee law. But wait, why aren't we just a signatory to the 1951 UN Refugee Convention? What is the actual advantage and disadvantage of staying out of it?
It's a great question. India refrained historically because the 1951 convention was deeply Eurocentric post-World War II, and signing it would mean allowing international interference in our sovereign domestic policies regarding our incredibly porous borders.
Oh, I see.
The advantage of not signing is that we retain absolute sovereign flexibility to handle sudden massive influxes based strictly on our national security needs.
Right.
The massive downside, however, is the lack of a structured, internationally recognized legal framework, which often leads to ad hoc, inconsistent policy decisions.
So we need our own customized law. If we create a national refugee law, how would it legally distinguish between an economic migrant and a genuine refugee?
A formal domestic law would establish clear, non-negotiable legal criteria. A genuine refugee is someone actively fleeing direct state persecution, violence, or war, and cannot return home safely.
Okay.
An economic migrant, however, crosses borders purely for better financial opportunities. A dedicated law would set up specialized screening filters to grant legal asylum to the former while establishing strict legal protocols to deport the latter, completely streamlining the current administrative mess.
And wrapping up this topic, how will this new high-power demographic mission directly impact India's overall internal security matrix?
It creates a paradigm shift. It moves the approach from fragmented border policing to a highly centralized, intelligence-driven demographic audit.
Right.
By formalizing biometric records and rolling out robust national identity cards, or NIDs, the mission cuts off the oxygen for sleeper cells and insurgent groups who currently use illegal immigrant populations as camouflage.
It essentially plugs the biggest, most chaotic vulnerability in our internal security matrix.
Incredible. Guys, practice saying this right now. Practice saying CIBMS and a national refugee law are the absolute need of the hour.
Nail those concepts and your mains answers will stand out. In short, this idea shows now illegal immigration सिर्फ एक border issue नहीं है. यह देश के demographic, economic और security fabric के लिए एक massive existential challenge है, याद रखना.
Absolutely spot on.
Wow, what a massive, dense session this has been. Let's do a highly energetic final recap to lock all four pillars into our brains. Number 1, under state and non-state actors, we tackled LWE. हमने देखा कि कैसे LWE विकास की कमी से जन्मा और अब समाधान स्ट्रैटेजी के टेक ड्रिवन अप्रोच और एकलव्य स्कूलों के डेवलपमेंटल पुश से फाइनली सिमट रहा है। नंबर 2, बैलेंसिंग सिक्योरिटी एंड राइट्स रिगार्डिंग एफ्स्पा. We explored the delicate balance between operational military security and fundamental human rights, guided by strict Supreme Court safeguards and the Jeevan Reddy Committee's vital suggestion to merge powers into civilian laws like UAPA.
Right.
Number 3, conflict and peace building in the Northeast. यहाँ permanent peace केवल आर्मी से नहीं, बल्कि Act East पॉलिसी की इकोनॉमिक्स, मैसिव इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर और डीसेक्यूरिटाइजेशन जैसी मॉडर्न अप्रोचेस से आ रही है। एंड फाइनली नंबर 4, टैकलिंग इलीगल इमिग्रेशन थ्रू द डेमोग्राफी मिशन. We saw how securing porous riverine borders requires the invisible tech of CIBMS and why India urgently needs a solid national refugee law to protect its demographic fabric.
A perfect synthesis of everything we've unpacked today.
But before you go, जाने से पहले जरा इस एक थॉट पर विचार करें। थोड़ा सोच लो, आज हमने बॉर्डर्स, फॉरेस्ट्स और लॉज की बात की, लेकिन जब AI और डीफेक टेक्नोलॉजी का डायरेक्ट इस्तेमाल नॉन स्टेट एक्टर्स जैसे माओइस्ट्स या फॉरेन बैक्ड इंसर्जेंट्स हाइपर रियलिस्टिक प्रोपेगेंडा फैलाने के लिए करेंगे, तो हमारी सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस इस कंप्लीटली इनविजिबल बॉर्डरलेस साइबर युद्ध से कैसे निपटेंगी? The front lines are no longer just in the jungles or at the rivers, they are in our smartphones. अगली बार तक इस बारे में जरूर सोचिएगा. Keep learning and keep diving deep.
Imagine an algorithm predicting you are going to commit a crime tomorrow. Police show up at your door before you even, done anything. Sounds exactly like the sci-fi movie Minority Report, है ना?
Yeah, literally.
But according to a recent Parliamentary Standing Committee report, Indian law enforcement is already knocking on the door of real-time AI surveillance.
Oh, wow.
तो आज हम एक बहुत ही critical stack of sources को deep dive करने वाले हैं.
Right.
Our focus is on threats to internal security. मतलब हमारे sources में government reports, laws और कुछ insane new age threats covered है, like AI and quantum tech.
Yeah, it's a massive stack.
Exactly. Our mission today is to decode the why and how behind these complex concepts. So you are absolutely ready for UPSC GS Paper 3. Samjhe? Let's unpack this.
It's a fascinating and honestly slightly terrifying stack of material. Because internal security अब सिर्फ borders की बात नहीं रही. It's in your phone, your bank accounts, your hospital databases.
Right.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is entirely about how India is adapting to modern invisible warfare.
Sahi baat hai. So for everyone taking notes, let's establish our first section. Topic name, online radicalization.
Okay.
Broad micro theme, technology and internal security. क्या आप जानते हैं कि 2025 तक roughly 74% global population online होगी?
That's a huge number.
So that's cool, na? You get connectivity, education, commerce.
Yeah.
लेकिन इसका एक massive dark side भी है. Radical, violent ideas अब इंटरनेट के थ्रू wildfire की तरह फैल रहे हैं.
It is a critical vulnerability. Today we will cover the push and pull factors of this radicalization, how echo chambers work, and what the government is doing with initiatives like Sahi Rasta.
Okay, sounds good.
The core definition of radicalization is like when someone adopts extreme views that actively push them toward violence.
Right.
And online platforms make this process incredibly fast and, very hard to control.
Take Kerala, for example. The Kerala government had to launch Operation Pigeon, specifically to de-radicalize youth who are being recruited online.
Yeah, that was a major operation.
And on a different scale, the Indian Army's Operation Sadbhavna is a great case study. I mean, it's a perfect example of proactive community engagement.
Absolutely.
But I have to ask, why is it so easy to influence these kids? Is it just brainwashing?
It's more systematic than just brainwashing.
Okay.
You have to look at the push and pull factors. Push factors are things driving a person away from society.
Like what?
Economic unemployment, social marginalization, or a total loss of faith in politics.
Ah, I see.
Then you have the pull factors drawing them in. Radical groups offer monetary incentives, slick online propaganda, and they heavily exploit emotional crises, like the Israel-Gaza conflict, to create a sense of shared injustice.
So they find angry, isolated youth. But how do they lock them in?
Through echo chambers.
Okay.
Social media algorithms are designed for engagement, right?
Right.
By using personal user data, extremist recruiters use micro-targeting and profiling.
Wait, really?
Yeah, they feed a vulnerable person content that only reinforces their anger, isolating them from any counter-arguments.
So if there's a question on echo chambers in a UPSC mains answer, how should a student frame it?
You should use it as a prime example of the isolation of thought.
Isolation of thought. Got it.
Yeah, echo chambers amplify extremist narratives by shutting out diverse perspectives.
And I imagine the gamification of this content plays a huge role in the psychological manipulation, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like they use interactive content, almost like video games, for indoctrination.
Exactly. It doesn't look like a boring lecture. It feels like an exciting, interactive mission.
Wow.
And it's incredibly hard for law enforcement to track this because of the anonymity of the dark web and encrypted messaging apps.
That makes sense.
Plus, there is a massive legal gap. There is no universal, globally accepted definition of radicalization.
Wait, if there's no universal definition, how does that create a legal gap? Does that mean we can't arrest people?
It means global coordination becomes nearly impossible.
Oh.
If India wants to extradite a radical recruiter from another country, but that country's laws don't define their actions as radicalization or terrorism.
Then treaty enforcement stalls.
Precisely.
Wow. So earlier you mentioned Operation Pigeon. How can we use that as a case study?
Use Operation Pigeon to highlight community-level de-radicalization and administrative proactive measures.
Perfect. And globally, I mean, what are the international efforts?
Globally, you should mention Tech Against Terrorism and the Christchurch Call.
What is the significance of the Christchurch Call?
Operation. Also, INTERPOL's Bharat Pol initiative.
Right.
The ultimate takeaway is that we need to build strong counter-narratives and focus heavily on rehabilitation.
You know, for everyone listening and prepping, pause and practice saying this out loud. Online radicalization thrives on echo chambers and micro-targeting. Saying it helps lock the concept in your brain.
That's good advice. Because in short, this idea shows how internet platforms connect vulnerable youth directly to global extremist networks.
Now, extremists को radicalize और operate करने के लिए पैसा चाहिए होता है, right?
Yeah, exactly.
और वो पैसा traditional bank से तो आएगा नहीं, क्योंकि वहाँ KYC है. So, they adapt. Topic name: Cryptocurrencies and Smuggling.
Okay.
Broad micro theme: Technology and Internal Security. What if I told you that drug and gold smugglers are ditching cash and dealing in codes?
It's crazy.
The Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, DRI, 2024-25 report literally highlights this massive shift.
It makes perfect sense from a criminal's perspective.
Right.
Today we need to understand cryptocurrencies, stable coins, why smugglers prefer them, and how India's taxation laws are fighting back.
So what's the baseline?
Cryptocurrencies are digital currencies running on a decentralized blockchain. But the real game changer for criminals is the stablecoin.
Right, because normal crypto like Bitcoin is way too volatile.
Exactly.
Right? If a smuggler sells drugs for Bitcoin, the value might drop 20% by tomorrow.
Precisely. Stablecoins are pegged to a stable asset like gold or fiat currency, usually the US dollar.
Ah, okay.
So a stablecoin like USDT gives criminals the price stability of the US dollar, but without any geographic borders. It is essentially replacing traditional Hawala networks.
So in a mains answer, how do we explain this stable coins and Hawala connection?
You'd say that stable coins provide price stability, which gives criminals the comfort of fiat currency, but it allows for instant, borderless transactions.
Got it. And the DRI, which is the Apex Anti-Smuggling Agency established back in 1957 under CBIC, has noted a huge spike in this.
Yes.
I mean, crypto is non-fiat, independent of central banks, and has zero intrinsic value. Sure, the public ledger offers some transparency, but the cryptography makes the actual owners virtually untraceable.
Criminals use it because it enables off-the-book payments. By using anonymous wallets and VPNs, they easily evade customs duties.
Right.
It's pseudonymous and operates in massive regulatory gaps.
So how is India fighting this from an economic and security perspective, especially for GS3? I know the Finance Act 2022 slapped a 30% tax on the transfer of virtual digital assets, or VDAs.
Yes, and crucially, The Income Tax Act 1961 was updated to explicitly define VDAs.
Quick question. Does that VDA definition include NFTs? That feels like a solid UPSC Prelims trick question.
Yes, it explicitly includes NFTs and cryptographic tokens.
Oh wow, good to know.
Furthermore, in 2023, VDAs were brought under the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, the PMLA.
What's the real impact of that PMLA extension?
The real impact is that VDA platforms now have to do mandatory KYC and report suspicious transactions to the government.
And globally, FATF guidelines apply here too.
Yes, FATF is enforcing anti-money laundering standards on global exchanges for stablecoins.
By the way, going back to the DRI, is their mandate strictly just gold and drugs?
Not at all. They enforce a wide range of laws: the Customs Act, NDPS, the Wildlife Protection Act, and COFEPOSA.
Ah, I see.
Moving forward, the strategy requires advanced forensic tools. We need AI-driven analytics for DRI and the Enforcement Directorate, and strict source of funds verification for transactions above 1 lakh rupees.
Got it. Okay guys, pause and practice saying. Cryptocurrencies facilitate off-the-book payments due to their pseudonymous nature.
Perfect. Because in short, this idea shows how digital anonymity directly connects to transnational organized crime.
But if criminals are using AI and digital networks, law enforcement needs equally smart tech to catch them.
Definitely.
Topic name: Emergence of AI in India's internal security architecture.
Okay.
Broad. Micro theme: technology and internal security. This brings us back to my Minority Report hook.
Yeah.
We are going to cover the role of AI in law enforcement, Mahacrime OS, I4C, deepfakes, and the massive privacy issues this creates.
AI is truly a double-edged sword in security. At its core, AI analyzes vast amounts of data to recognize crime patterns, enabling incredibly fast decision-making.
Like Maharashtra's Mahacrime OS, it literally does instant case creation, manages diaries, and profiles persons of interest. Wait a second.
What?
This is a total eureka moment. AI is literally predicting crime. Guys, if you want to keep predicting and cracking these UPSC concepts with us, just like AI predicts crime, जल्दी से चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर लो, लाइक दबा दो और नोट्स के लिए नोटिफिकेशंस ऑन कर लो यार. Let's build our own learning algorithm.
Haha, smooth transition. But yes, police forces are integrating AI heavily.
Right.
Take CCTNS 2.0. Uses AI for multilingual queries and mapping crime hotspots. Then there's the National Cybercrime Reporting Portal, the NCRP, which uses AI to instantly classify complaints.
I read about MuleHunter.ai. That's an IIT Bombay and RBI Innovation Hub project, right? How exactly does that work?
It's an AI and machine learning algorithm designed specifically to stop financial fraud.
Okay.
It analyzes transaction behaviors and network patterns to score suspect bank accounts that act as money mules.
That's brilliant. And it's not just police. The CRPF uses NLP for crowd forecasting, CISF uses it for airport surveillance, and the NSG uses NIDMS? Wait, what is NIDMS?
That is the National IED Data Management Software.
Oh, and obviously I4C is using AI to identify deepfakes, but we have to talk about the dark side. Mass surveillance. Doesn't this directly conflict with Article 21 and the Puttaswamy judgment?
Absolutely. The Puttaswamy judgment establishes the right to privacy as a fundamental right under Article 21, acting as a shield against unwanted mass surveillance. When you rely heavily on AI, you risk algorithmic bias, where the AI makes higher error rates against minorities. You also face the black box problem, where AI decisions lack transparency.
Can you give an example of this going wrong for a mains answer? Like an example of AI bias?
Yeah, look at Australia's robo-debt scheme.
Robodebt.
Yes, it was a massive scandal where a faulty automated system issued incorrect debt notices on a massive scale. It ruined lives. That's the danger of automation bias, where humans just blindly trust the machine.
So what's the UPSC perspective on the solution? I keep reading about a human-in-the-loop requirement.
It means administrative or punitive decisions can never be left entirely to AI. Human empathy, moral oversight, and final judgment are legally mandatory.
Makes total sense.
We also need formal statutes for things like facial recognition systems and strict implementation of the DPDP Act.
Great insight. Everyone, pause and practice saying. AI governance requires a hybrid model with human-in-the-loop oversight.
In short, this idea shows how AI transforms policing but requires incredibly strict legal and ethical guardrails to protect citizens.
And speaking of protecting citizens, if AI needs mountains of data to work, whose data is it?
Good question.
Topic name, Data Protection,
Okay.
a broad micro to you. Technology and internal security. Did you know that 80% of India's raw unprocessed personal data is exported globally?
Yeah, it's wild.
People are calling this the new colonialism.
It's a very valid concern. We need to explore data usage, right to privacy, techno-colonialism, data localization, and the DPDP Act.
Okay.
Data protection essentially means safeguarding critical personal and non-personal data from corruption, compromise, or loss.
Like how UIDI uses data for Aadhaar administration or how NatGrid uses it. Just to clarify, NatGrid's primary function is what?
It serves as a unified intelligence database specifically for national security, linking various government databases to track terror suspects.
Right. And with India's digital economy booming, projected to be 1/5 of our national income by 2029-30, and massive platforms like UPI, protecting this data is about building public trust.
Absolutely.
But this techno-colonialism term is fascinating. How should a student use that in a UPSC essay?
You should use it to describe a modern extraction economy.
Meaning?
Instead of spices or gold, foreign tech giants extract raw data from developing nations like India, process it using AI, and then sell the finished digital products back to us. That is data colonialism, yaad rakhna.
That is such a powerful way to frame it. And the risks are huge. The India Cyber Threat Report 2026 says we face 505 cyber detections every single minute,
Which is why the government passed the DPDP Act of 2023.
which was based on the Justice B. N. Sri Krishna Committee, right? Always a crucial point to mention in answers.
Yes, along with the IT Rules 2021 for intermediary accountability and rural digital literacy programs like PMGDISA.
Right.
Moving forward, India needs absolute digital sovereignty through structures like ONDC and India Stack.
I also read about data anonymization and something called pseudonymization. What is that?
Pseudonymization is a data masking technique.
Like hiding names.
Yes, it replaces private identifiers with fake names or codes so the data can be analyzed without exposing personal identities.
Are there global models for this?
We should be looking at the EU's GDPR and Digital Markets Act, the DMA, because they set the global gold standard for user privacy and fair digital markets.
Nice. All right. Pause and practice saying. Digital sovereignty requires robust data localization and anonymization frameworks.
In short, this idea shows how protecting raw data directly connects to national security and digital public trust.
Now, protecting the software data is one thing. But what about the physical servers, power grids, and telecom networks where all this digital magic happens?
That's the backbone.
Topic name: Critical Information Infrastructure, or CII.
Okay.
Broad micro theme: Technology and Internal Security. सोचो, अगर अचानक से इंडिया का entire banking system और power grid shutdown हो जाए, we'd be in the dark ages instantly. That's a CII attack.
It is the ultimate nightmare scenario. We will define CII, look at state-sponsored and IoT threats, and examine the government's response.
What's the official definition?
According to the IT Act 2000, critical information infrastructure is defined as any computer resource whose incapacitation or destruction would have a debilitating impact on national security, the economy, or public health.
Like power, banking, telecom, and transport. And the threats are escalating. State-sponsored actors conduct espionage, and smart cities expose us to massive IoT risks.
Exactly.
I even read about the Defense Cyber Agency running a cyber suraksha exercise to simulate these exact real-world threats. But why is India specifically struggling here?
Several reasons. First, a severe lack of indigenization in hardware and software. We buy foreign tech. Second, There's a huge inhibition in sharing vulnerabilities between the private and public sectors
Why wouldn't a private bank tell the government they found a vulnerability?
because of the fear of reputational loss and legal liability.
Ah,
If a bank admits its security is flawed, its stock crashes. It's a huge challenge. We also lack trained cybersecurity professionals.
for JS3, what are the institutional measures India has taken? I know about the National Cybersecurity Strategy 2020, and we have NCIIPC and CERTIN. But what's the main difference?
Don't confuse the two. NCIIPC, which is the National Critical Infrastructure Protection Center, is exclusively focused on protecting CII.
And CERTIN?
CERTIN handles broader, everyday cybersecurity incidents for the whole nation.
Ekdam clear. The way forward involves a comprehensive security approach and adopting a cyber kill chain. What is that framework?
A cyber kill chain is a modern intelligence model that traces the various stages of a cyber attack from reconnaissance to exfiltration.
So you track the attack as it happens.
Right. By understanding the chain, you can interrupt the attack before the damage is done. We should also look at global best practices, like Australia's Critical Infrastructure Resilience Strategy, to formulate international norms.
Got it. Let's lock this in, pause and practice saying, safeguarding CII requires indigenization and public-private intelligence sharing.
In short, this idea shows how physical infrastructure connects directly to catastrophic cyber vulnerabilities.
So, CII threats are just the peak of the mountain. India's overall cybercrime scale is mind-blowing.
It really is.
Topic name: Cybercrime in India. Evolution, threats, and strategic responses.
Okay.
Broad micro-theme: Cybersecurity. Between 2019 and 2024, India lost 31,500 crore rupees to cybercrime. And by 2025, we'll have 100 crore internet connections. The attack surface is massive.
The financial drain is staggering. We need to unpack the parliamentary panel report, AI and quantum threats, and our strategic responses. Cybercrime is simply the malicious use of digital systems. But consider this. India's cybersecurity industry is worth $20 billion, driven by over 400 startups. Protecting that ecosystem is critical.
And the threats are getting smarter. I saw reference to Mythos by Claude. Where does that fit in?
That's a perfect cutting-edge example to use in answers. Mythos by Claude represents AI-driven vulnerability discovery.
So the AI finds the weak spots.
Exactly. It uses AI to identify software weaknesses at a massive scale, much faster than a human hacker ever could.
The Parliamentary Panel on Home Affairs recently released a report highlighting how this is eroding digital trust. And what is the economic impact of that trust erosion?
If the elderly and vulnerable lose faith in digital platforms because of scams or deepfakes, our entire digital transformation slows down. People will revert to cash and manual processes out of fear.
But the most terrifying things are the emerging tech threats, like quantum computing. How do you explain the concept of HNDL in a UPSC exam?
HNDL stands for Harvest Now, Decrypt Later.
Wait, what does that mean?
It means adversaries are stealing highly encrypted data right now. They know they can't crack it today, but they are storing it so that in 5 to 10 years, when quantum computers exist, they can easily decode it.
That is wildly dangerous. And with AI, there's something called attack chaining, right?
Yes.
Where AI combines multiple low-risk vulnerabilities to create one massive, high-impact attack.
Yes, exactly. To fight this, we need intermediary accountability.
Meaning platforms like social media companies must register in India and have local grievous officers to take down unlawful content immediately.
Correct. We also need indigenous app stores, quantum-resistant encryption, and massive capacity building for the police and judiciary.
All right, pause and practice saying. Quantum computing and AI introduce zero-day risks requiring indigenous tech upgrades.
In short, this idea shows how massive internet penetration exposes society to incredibly complex financial and psychological cyber threats.
Now, since cybercrime doesn't care about borders, India alone can't fix it.
Definitely not.
Topic name: UN Convention Against Cybercrime.
Okay.
Broad micro-theme: Cybersecurity. In December 2024, the UN adopted the first legally binding framework on cybercrime. But the shocker is, India hasn't signed it yet.
It is a deliberate strategic pause. Let's analyze the UN Convention, compare it to the older Budapest Convention, and discuss its significance.
Okay.
This treaty was drafted by the UNODC to facilitate electronic evidence sharing and prevent cybercrimes globally.
Now, the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime happened in 2001. But countries like Russia and China rejected it because it was heavily Eurocentric and Western-dominated. How is this new UN convention different?
The Budapest Convention lacked global consensus. The UN Convention is truly universal. Most importantly, it places a massive focus on sovereign equality, territorial integrity, and non-intervention.
So why hasn't India signed it? Are we against it?
Not necessarily. India is likely taking time to align its domestic laws with the treaty and deeply analyzing those sovereignty clauses to ensure they don't compromise national interests.
The new convention has an expanded scope, right? Covering cyber-dependent crimes, online child abuse, and a 24/7 network for international cooperation. What about victim support?
It includes provisions for recovery services, compensation, and the removal of illicit content according to a country's domestic laws.
From a UPSC perspective, this is a huge victory for multilateralism, especially since global cybercrime costs are projected to hit $10.5 trillion by 2025. Wait, where does that 10.5 trillion data point come from?
Those are industrial expert projections for 2025. It serves as a fantastic high-impact hook for your mains introduction.
Oh, nice.
And this treaty is vital for the Global South, as developing nations often lack robust cybersecurity infrastructure, and this treaty emphasizes capacity building.
Got it. Pause and practice saying the UN Convention balances international cooperation with the protection of state sovereignty.
In short, this idea shows how international law connects to localized digital protection.
We mentioned quantum computing earlier and how it could make current laws and security totally irrelevant.
Yeah, that's a huge issue.
Topic name, quantum cyber readiness.
Okay.
Broad micro theme, cybersecurity. MITI released the white paper basically saying that data beyond 2030, if not protected today, will be hacked in seconds by quantum computers. RSA encryption will be dead.
It is the Y2K of the 2030s.
Right.
We need to understand the threats, India's national quantum mission, and the transition to post-quantum cryptography, or PQC.
Right.
Quantum computers solve complex mathematical problems millions of times faster than classical computers.
But India is fighting back. ISRO successfully demonstrated free space quantum key distribution, or QKD, over 300 meters. And the National Quantum Mission 2023 has a massive target, right?
Yes, the aim is to establish a 2,000-kilometer quantum-secured communication link. DRDO has inaugurated the QTRC, and CDOT is working heavily on QKD.
We talked about Harvest Now Decrypt later. But there's also secure channel decryption, where defense comms are hacked, and signature impersonation, where digital certificates are forged for phishing. So what is the roadmap? What is this QBOM I keep reading about?
QBOM stands for Quantum Bill of Materials. It is essentially a comprehensive inventory of an organization's cryptographic assets, used for risk mapping. Once you know what you have, you transition to post-quantum cryptography.
And PQC refers to new mathematical algorithms that are so complex, even quantum computers can't easily break them.
Exactly. But we can't just switch overnight. We need hybrid cryptography.
Why hybrid?
Combining classical and quantum-resistant algorithms ensures a safer, smoother transition.
I also see terms like MLDSA and SLHDSA. Where do I mention those in UPSC?
Mention them in science and tech answers under high-security digital signatures for critical transactions.
Pause and practicing. Transitioning to quantum readiness requires post-quantum cryptography and hybrid architectures.
In short, this idea shows how future computing power connects to present-day encryption vulnerabilities.
But tech threats don't operate in a vacuum. Hostile countries fund them.
Sadly, yes.
Topic name, terror financing, state-sponsored terrorism.
Okay.
Broad micro-theme, threats to internal security. Did you know India's National Risk Assessment 2022 explicitly identified Pakistan as a high-risk source for terror financing?
The geopolitical reality is stark. We'll map state-sponsored terror implications, UN politicization, India's CCIT proposal, and FATF guidelines.
Okay.
State-sponsored terrorism is when a country openly or covertly funds, trains, or provides safe havens to terrorist groups to achieve its political agenda.
Like the horrific Mumbai and Pahalgam attacks. Pakistan provides safe havens for groups like LAT and JM. And on a domestic level, who releases this NRA 2022 report?
India conducts this assessment internally to ensure compliance with FATF standards.
The human costs are devastating. But internationally, the biggest roadblock is the politicization of the UN sanctions committees. Like, how does China's hold actually work? Do they just say no and the world stops?
Essentially, yes. They use their P5 veto or a technical hold to block the global listing of specific terrorists, which severely undermines global counter-terrorism efforts.
So in response, India proposed the CCIT. What exactly is this treaty?
The Comprehensive Convention on International Terrorism is a proposed global treaty by India demanding a universal definition of terrorism and a strict zero-tolerance policy.
India also supports victims of terrorism, right?
Yes.
We contribute to voluntary funds for victim assistance through national systems. Going forward, what are the FATF's risk indicators we should monitor?
FATF advises monitoring travel patterns, social media activity, and complex payment structures that indicate terror financing.
Right. Pause in practicing. Countering state-sponsored terrorism requires depoliticization of UN sanctions and FATF compliance.
In short, this idea shows how sovereign nations exploit terror networks for their own geopolitical gains.
But traditional terrorism isn't just happening across the border anymore.
No, it's changing.
Topic name: White-collar terrorism, WCT.
Okay.
Broad micro theme: threats to internal security. Today's terrorists aren't always holding guns. They are highly educated professionals writing encryption codes or managing finances.
The profile is evolving rapidly. We will define WCT, look at the ISIS Kerala recruits, differentiate it from traditional crime, and discuss countermeasures. WCT refers to the covert participation of professionals who enable, design, finance, or shield terror operations using their intellect.
Like the recruits from Kerala who joined ISIS. These weren't impoverished, marginalized youth. They came from upper-middle-class families with incredibly sound educational backgrounds.
Yes, the concept originates from Edwin Sutherland's white-collar crime. Mentioning Sutherland adds great depth to a UPSC answer.
Nice tip.
But there is a crucial difference. Host, what do you think separates WCT from standard white-collar crime?
Motivation, right? Standard white-collar crime is just corporate greed and money. White-collar terrorism is driven by ideology and religious extremism, using subversion rather than overt violence.
Exactly. They weaponize intellect. Engineers run weapons programs. Doctors join Al-Qaeda. IT specialists build encrypted networks.
Wow.
And sadly, we see this incubating in universities through the misuse of research material and intellectual radicalization.
So how do we counter this? I've read about FIU India. What is their role here?
The Financial Intelligence Unit India monitors high-value transactions and shell entities to track illicit funding. But we also need a unified risk intelligence grid.
Which links the databases of the NIA, ED, Intelligence Bureau, and State Police to track sensitive professions, right?
Exactly. White-collar terrorism thrives on deception and privileged access. So we need early warning systems in corporate offices and universities.
White-collar terrorism subverts systems using privileged access and ideological motivation.
In short, this idea shows how highly educated professionals connect to global terror infrastructure.
From internal subversion, let's move to state-level invisible attacks.
Sure.
Topic name: Gray Zone Warfare.
Okay.
Broad micro theme: threats to internal security. If two countries aren't shooting bullets at each other, does that mean they're at peace? Not anymore. China and Pakistan are actively engaging India in gray zone warfare.
The battlefield has completely shifted. We will cover the concept, its core characteristics, and how India can counter it.
So what is it exactly?
Gray zone warfare consists of hostile actions that deliberately stay one step below the threshold that would provoke a conventional military response.
So cyber attacks, economic coercion, and narrative warfare.
But why is it so dangerous? I mean, what is incremental escalation?
It's the salami slicing tactic. You don't launch a massive invasion, you take tiny, aggressive steps over decades. It's incredibly dangerous because the defender never gets a clear justification to launch a full military response.
And the aggressor always uses plausible deniability, right? Meaning they conduct the attack so secretly that there is no definitive proof, allowing them to completely deny involvement.
Precisely. They exploit societal and economic vulnerabilities. They also use cognitive warfare, manipulating public narratives to destroy trust in democratic institutions.
So for a GS3 answer, where does this fit?
It sits perfectly at the intersection of hybrid warfare, border management, and cyber threats.
To counter this, we need space domain awareness like Durga 2 and regular red teaming of our critical infrastructure. Red teaming is basically hiring ethical hackers to brutally attack our own systems to find the weak spots before the enemy does, right?
Exactly. Security forces must think far beyond traditional physical borders.
Pause and practice saying. Gray zone warfare relies on plausible deniability and incremental escalation.
In short, this idea shows how states attack each other while staying just below the threshold of conventional war.
Finally, what's more terrifying than a cyber attack you can't see? A microscopic biological attack.
Yeah, that's scary.
Topic name, Biosecurity Architecture. Broad micro theme, threats to internal security. DNA sequences for dangerous pathogens are freely available on the internet. A rogue scientist could theoretically synthesize a deadly virus in a lab. Are our laws heady?
We are dangerously underprepared. We look at agricultural and synthetic risks, our fragmented laws, and the One Health approach.
Okay.
Biosecurity means preventing the intentional release or misuse of dangerous biological agents and toxins.
This includes agri-terrorism. What happens if someone attacks our agriculture?
Catastrophic crop failure, massive food insecurity, and total economic collapse. It's a massive gray zone threat.
Wow.
And our legal architecture is archaic. The Epidemic Diseases Act is from 1897.
1897?
Yes, it's from the colonial era. It obviously has zero provisions for modern synthetic biology or AI biothreats.
And you mentioned AI biothreats. That's using AI tools to optimize a pathogen's DNA sequence to make it more deadly, right?
Yes. Furthermore, our regulatory bodies operate in silos. The Department of Biotechnology handles research, NCDC handles outbreaks, and the Plant Quarantine Organization handles agriculture.
So they are all disconnected?
They don't talk to each other seamlessly.
So the policy solution is a dedicated biosecurity agency to break down these silos and achieve strategic alignment across health, agriculture, and defense. And this ties into the One Health approach.
Exactly. One Health recognizes that human, animal, and plant ecosystems are deeply interconnected. Therefore, surveillance and biosecurity must be fully integrated.
Pause in practicing. A robust biosecurity architecture necessitates the One Health approach and a dedicated national agency.
In short, this idea shows how biological research directly connects to massive national security vulnerabilities.
When you blend all these cyber, tech, bio, and terror threats together, you get hybrid warfare.
The ultimate threat.
Topic name, practice question,
Okay.
broad micro-theme, hybrid warfare. Time for a quick challenge. Let's structure a high-scoring mains answer for this question. Hybrid warfare has blurred the distinction between war and peace. Discuss its implications for India's national security.
Structuring is everything. Hybrid warfare is the ultimate blend of conventional, irregular, cyber, and information warfare.
So, in the introduction, what's the best keyword to drop to impress the examiner?
Define it as the synergy of kinetic and non-kinetic instruments.
Perfect. For body part 1 on characteristics, we should list plausible deniability, information warfare, proxy actors, and the use of AI and cyber tools.
Yes. For body part 2 on implications for India, you must be specific.
Like what?
Mention critical infrastructure risks like attacks on power grids, economic disruption via crypto smuggling, and internal unrest caused by deepfakes and radicalization.
To make the conclusion truly strong, we should advocate for a whole-of-government approach.
integrating CII protection, the One Health initiative, and global cooperation like FATF compliance.
Exactly. That hits all the policy dimensions perfectly.
Final pause and practice cue, guys. Practice writing this core thesis. India must adopt a whole-of-government approach, integrating cyber, border, and biosecurity.
In short, this practice connects all the diverse topics we discussed today into one master strategy for your exam.
What an incredibly intense, deep dive. Let's do a quick, energetic bullet summary to wrap up.
Let's do it.
Under technology and security, we explored the psychological trap of echo chambers in radicalization and the dark networks of crypto smuggling via stablecoins. For AI and data, we saw how AI brings predictive policing, but why data protection like the DPDP Act and CII security remain absolutely paramount.
Right.
Regarding cyber threats, India lost 31K crore. Quantum computing threatens to break RSA encryption, making the UN Convention crucial for global law.
Yeah.
And in modern warfare, we are facing highly educated white-collar terrorists, gray zone plausible deniability, and biosecurity threats requiring a One Health approach.
It has been a marathon of knowledge, but fundamentally necessary to understand the invisible battlegrounds of the 21st century.
Here is a final provocative thought to leave you with. अगर AI और quantum tech completely terrorist के हाथों में आ जाएं, तो क्या हमारा One Health architecture और Digital India survive कर पाएगा? Think about it and keep studying hard. It is the middle of the night at the Punjab border. There is intense fog. Matlab, visibility is absolutely zero. It's freezing cold. And suddenly, there is this very faint buzzing sound in the sky.
Oh, a drone?
Exactly. It is a drone and it's carrying a heavy payload of arms and narcotics. Now, normal eyes can't see it and radar might completely miss it because it's flying so low.
Right.
But right at that moment, our thermal imaging cameras lock onto its heat signature and boom, intersected.
See, that is the perfect illustration of how the traditional idea of border security is, well, it's completely transforming. The threat has evolved massively, so the defense mechanism has to evolve too.
Yeah.
We can't just rely on soldiers standing guard with binoculars anymore. I mean, those days are gone.
That drone is proof that the old days of guarding borders with just barbed wire are over.
Totally.
Today we are doing a deep dive into the topic, security challenges and their management in border areas. And our broad micro-theme for today is
Modernizing India's defense and border infrastructure.
right. We are going to look at exactly how we are fighting these next-generation threats.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, because managing borders today is a very complex matrix. It is a mix of cutting-edge technology, aggressive diplomacy, and a highly specialized infrastructure that is tailored to extremely difficult terrains.
Yeah, it's not simple.
Before we get completely lost in the details, let me give you guys a quick learning map of what we are covering in this deep dive. We have 4 main focus areas today. First, we are looking at India and bordering countries to understand the ground reality.
The basics.
Right. Second, we will explore the Sudarshan Chakra mission.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yep. Wait till we get to that. Third, we are going full sci-fi with quantum technologies in armed forces. And finally, we will tie it all together with advanced technology and border management. So grab your coffee and let's get into it.
Let's start with the groundwork.
Okay, so diving into topic 1, India and bordering countries. Basically, India shares its land borders with 6 different countries.
6, yeah.
And every single border has its own unique story and its own specific security challenge. Securing them is not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Not at all. I mean, the geography itself is incredibly diverse. We are talking about everything from the scorching deserts in the west to the marshlands in Gujarat.
Right.
And then the snow-capped high-altitude mountains in the north, all the way to the dense forests in the east.
Think about the Galwan Valley clash recently. The core issue there wasn't just troop deployment, right?
No.
It was a massive challenge of inadequate infrastructure. Because of that high-altitude terrain, basic access to rail and roads was extremely difficult,
Exactly.
which completely slowed down troop movement.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is exactly why securing these borders is the most critical aspect of internal security, especially from a UPSC GS Mains perspective. The physical geography completely dictates our security strategy.
So let's break down the core logic for each of these 6 borders, starting with the India-China border. The challenges here are massive, yaar.
Oh, definitely.
We have active border disputes at Galwan Valley, Aksai Chin, Arunachal Pradesh and Doklam. Plus, there are serious water-sharing issues over the Brahmaputra River.
And to counter that, our initiatives are heavily infrastructure-focused right now. We are actively creating infrastructure to reduce troop movement time. Like, a great example is the Dhola Sadia Bridge.
All right.
Then there is the Border Area Development Program and the Vibrant Village Program, which basically focus on developing border villages so they act as a demographic buffer.
Wait, I read that army infrastructure projects within 100 kilometers off the line of actual control, or the LAC, are now exempted from forest clearance?
Yes, they are.
Yaar, matlab, how does that work? What is the balance between environmental protection and national security there? Like, isn't that a huge ecological risk?
It is a delicate balance, yeah. But see, the exemption is strictly strategic. Yes, there is an environmental cost. However, in a high-threat zone like the LAC, delays in building roads or bunkers literally cost human lives and can lead to loss of territory.
Ah, I see.
The compromise is that this exemption is exclusively for strategic military projects, not for, commercial logging or private development.
Okay, that makes sense. Moving to India-Pakistan, we all know the historical border disputes at Sir Creek and Kashmir. But the active everyday threats are infiltration and cross-border terrorism, like what we tragically saw in Uri, Pulwama and Pahalgam.
Yeah.
And going back to our opening hook, Punjab is seeing massive use of drones for smuggling arms and narcotics. Hang on. We have spent billions on fencing that border. Why does traditional fencing fail against these drones? I mean, shouldn't we just build higher fences?
Because traditional fencing is purely two-dimensional.
Two-dimensional.
Yeah. It is built to stop physical movement on the ground. Drones operate in the third dimension, the airspace above the fence. A 10-foot barbed wire simply cannot stop a quadcopter flying at 500 feet at 2 a.m.
Oh, wow.
That is why we are shifting to anti-drone systems and thermal cameras.
So basically, we are fighting a 3D war with 2D defenses.
Exactly.
To manage this, the government is implementing CIBMS, which stands for Comprehensive Integrated Border Management System.
Right.
There's also the BIM, or Border Infrastructure and Management Scheme. Strategically, National Security Guard, or NSG commandos, are being deployed in J&K to counter terror ops.
And India even suspended the 1960 Indus Water Treaty to build diplomatic pressure.
Right. Now, looking at India-Nepal, the dynamic changes completely.
Oh, totally different ballgame.
We have border disputes at Kalapani, Limpiadhura and Lipleg. But the real complexity comes from the open border policy.
Yeah.
Right. And there is the fear of Nepal's Maoists linking with insurgents in India. Plus, we are seeing increasing Chinese investment in Nepal's core sectors like hydroenergy and infrastructure. But regarding that open border, it was originally meant to be a huge benefit for trade and culture. How did it become such a massive security risk? Like, where did we go wrong?
It was built on trust.
Okay.
But organized crime networks exploit that exact trust. Because there are no strict passport checks, insurgents, terrorists, or smugglers can simply walk across the border, blend into the local population, and evade law enforcement.
Wow.
The lack of friction, which is great for trade, is terrible for security.
To stabilize this, India established a Border District Coordination Committee and is constructing over 1,300 kilometers of roads along the border.
And financially, India has allocated 800 crore rupees in aid to Nepal for FY 2026-27, along with developing security infra like the Fatehpur border outpost.
Next up is India-Bhutan. The main issue here is insurgency. Specifically, ULFA camps operating out of Bhutan. There's also smuggling of Bhutanese cannabis and human trafficking.
But the response here has been highly collaborative.
Yeah.
The Royal Bhutan Army actually conducted Operation All Clear to remove insurgent camps from their soil themselves.
Then we have India-Myanmar. Because it is so close to the Golden Triangle, drug trafficking is a massive issue.
Huge issue.
The border is porous, poorly guarded, and lies in a very remote area. India launched Operation Sunrise here. Wait, what was the basic difference between Operation Sunrise and the Operation All Clear we just talked about in Bhutan?
Okay, so Operation All Clear was conducted primarily by the Royal Bhutan Army themselves, targeting Indian insurgent groups like ULFA hiding in their territory.
Okay.
Operation Sunrise, on the other hand, was a highly coordinated joint operation between the Indian and Myanmar armies. They targeted multiple insurgent groups operating along the Indo-Myanmar border together.
Got it. And for Myanmar, India is also relying on integrated checkposts, or ICPs, to strengthen ties with SAARC and Thailand.
And there is a major proposal to fence the entire 1643-kilometer-long Indo-Myanmar border.
Finally, India-Bangladesh. The historical challenge here has been illegal migration, which was around 20 million as per 2016 data, and smuggling of goods like Jamdani sarees.
And the diplomatic fix for that was the India-Bangladesh Land Boundary Agreement in 2015. On the ground, we have established a Border Protection Grid, or BPG, and implemented bold QIT under the CIBMS scheme.
Okay, so if we look at this from a high-level policy perspective, say someone is writing a strategic analysis for UPSC on CIBMS, what is the most critical point they need to highlight?
The strongest point is that CIBMS shifts border guarding from a manpower-intensive approach to a technology-intensive approach.
Right.
It integrates sensors, cameras, and communication networks to provide real-time situational awareness. This significantly reduces human error and troop fatigue.
Wait, before we jump into the next crazy tech, a quick heads up. If you guys are taking notes for your exams or just love geeking out on this stuff, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss these deep dives.
So that's cool, na?
Yeah, definitely subscribe.
Anyway, back to the tech. Here's a quick active recall trick for you guys taking notes. Just pause and practice saying CIBMS stands for Comprehensive Integrated Border Management System.
It is a crucial acronym to remember.
In short, इंडिया की हर सीमा की चुनौती अलग है और समाधान भी. Bridges से लेकर smart grids तक. We've talked about securing the ground, but as that drone in Punjab showed us, the real modern threat comes from the sky.
The third dimension, right? We can't just build taller fences. We need an invisible net over the whole country. Which brings us to topic 2, Sudarshan Chakra mission.
This is truly next-generation stuff.
Basically, this is India's futuristic, impenetrable security shield. Think of it as a multi-layered missile defense system that will neutralize any threat coming from the sky. The Prime Minister officially announced this during the 79th Independence Day celebrations.
If you want a real-life comparison, look at Israel's Iron Dome, which intercepts rockets mid-air.
Oh, right.
India is developing its own, highly advanced, indigenous version. And it is critical because today, just having boots on the ground isn't enough. You need absolute air superiority.
The core logic here is fascinating. The target timeline is to complete this by 2035.
But wait, 2035?
Yeah, isn't that timeline a bit too long, given how fast threats are evolving? Like, 2035 feels so far away.
It sounds long, but developing a multi-layered shield that covers an entire subcontinent is incredibly complex.
True.
You aren't just building a few missiles, you are building massive radars, cyber defenses, and command networks, and ensuring they all talk to each other seamlessly in real time. 2035 is actually an aggressive target for indigenous development of this massive scale.
And it's not just for military bases, right? It will provide comprehensive protection to strategic, civilian, and religious sites like hospitals and railways. It integrates advanced surveillance, cyber protection, and physical infrastructure.
Yes.
Why the heavy focus on civilian assets, though? Shouldn't military bases be the priority?
Because modern warfare is no longer confined to the battlefield.
Okay.
Adversaries now target civilian infrastructure like power grids, hospitals, transport hubs to break the morale of the population and cripple the economy. Protecting civilian assets is now just as critical as protecting military bases.
Let's talk about the actual hardware, the IAWS, or Integrated Air Defense Weapon System. DRDO recently conducted successful maiden flight tests for this. It includes the QRSAM, which is the Quick Reaction Surface-to-Air Missile.
Right.
It has a 5 to 30 kilometer range and is mounted on a mobile platform.
That mobility is key to protect moving army columns. Then there is the VSHORAS, developed by Research Center Imarat. It's a man-portable air defense system, or MANPADS, designed to take down low-altitude aerial threats.
And this next one sounds straight out of a movie. DEW, or Directed Energy Weapon. It's a high-power laser-based weapon.
Yeah, it's wild.
But how do these DEMs actually work in real combat? Is it literally like Star Wars with lasers shooting everywhere?
Less pew-pew sound effects, but the physics is similar. Instead of firing a physical explosive projectile, a DU focuses a massive amount of electromagnetic energy, like a high-powered laser, onto a target.
Oh, wow.
It heats the target's surface until it melts or its electronics fry. Since it travels at the speed of light, it's virtually impossible to dodge.
Mind-blowing. All of this is integrated by a centralized command and control center developed by DRDL. We also have Project Kusha under this umbrella, led by DRDO and Bharat Electronics Limited. This is expected by 2028-2029 and will develop long-range surface-to-air missiles, or LRSAMs. What is the strategic difference between Project Kusha and the QRSAM we just mentioned, besides the range?
Okay, so QRSAM is tactical. It moves with the army on the battlefield to protect troops from immediate short-range threats like helicopters or close air support jets.
Okay.
Project Kusha is strategic. It is a long-range system designed to protect entire cities or regions from incoming ballistic missiles or high-altitude bombers from hundreds of kilometers away.
Got it. So if we are evaluating the overall impact of this mission, how do we define the deterrence effect strategically for a UPSC answer?
Deterrence effect basically means discouraging an enemy from attacking by making the cost of the attack too high or the probability of success too low.
Makes sense?
If an adversary knows India has the Sudarshan Chakra shield, they know their missiles will likely be intercepted and wasted. That knowledge itself prevents the war from starting.
Excellent. Let's do a quick active recall here. Pause and practice saying, Project Kusha is an indigenous long-range air defense system expected by 2028.
It is the backbone of our future defense.
In short, सुदर्शन चक्र मिशन 2035 तक इंडिया के आसमान को लेजर और मिसाइल्स के स्वदेशी जाल से पूरी तरह सुरक्षित कर देगा. समझे?
Absolutely.
Now, we just talked about lasers, but the tech gets even wilder. Let's explore topic 3, quantum technologies in armed forces.
This is where we step into the future.
Simply put, quantum tech relies on the bizarre rules of quantum physics, not traditional computer code. For the military, this means, theoretically, unhackable communication and sensors that can detect hidden submarines deep underwater. Imagine an enemy trying to intercept our classified military message, but because of quantum rules, the mere act of them looking at the message causes it to instantly destroy itself.
Exactly. Recently, the Chief of Defense Staff released the Military Quantum Mission Policy Framework. The background here is that future warfare will be heavily technology-centric, and achieving jointness or tri-services integration is absolutely essential.
This initiative is aligned with the National Quantum Mission, or NQM. NQM aims to build a strong national ecosystem spanning R&D, infrastructure, and startups, with a massive budget of roughly 6,000 crore rupees from 2023-24 to 2030-31.
That's a huge investment.
But wait, why is this 6,000 crore budget specifically given for civil and military fusion? Why not keep military research separate for security reasons? I mean, wouldn't that be safer?
Because quantum research is incredibly expensive and resource-intensive. If the military and civilian sectors operate in silos, they duplicate costs and slow down progress.
Ah, I see.
By fusing them, a breakthrough in a civilian university startup can be immediately weaponized for the military and vice versa. It maximizes the return on investment for the nation.
That makes total sense. The framework prioritizes 4 core pillars. Number 1, quantum communication. Number 2, quantum computing. Number 3, quantum sensing and metrology. And number 4, quantum materials and devices.
Let's break down the actual military applications.
Yes, first, navigation. By using atomic interferometry, the military can achieve highly precise navigation for missiles and submarines without relying on GPS.
How does that actually end our dependence on GPS?
Well, GPS relies on satellite signals, which can be jammed or spoofed by enemies.
Right.
Atomic interferometry measures the wave properties of atoms to detect acceleration and rotation with extreme precision.
Wow, it acts as an ultra-accurate internal compass. So a submarine or missile knows exactly where it is based entirely on its own movement without needing any external satellite signal to guide it.
Then there is sensing. They use quantum magnetometers, like squids, which can detect minute magnetic anomalies to find submerged submarines or hidden underground structures that normal sensors completely miss.
Yeah.
For warfare, quantum-enabled AI will power autonomous drones.
And for imaging, they are using entangled photon and ghost imaging techniques. This allows imaging through heavy fog, smoke, or pitch darkness.
Wait. So it's like having magic twin security cameras? One camera goes into the dark room but doesn't have a screen. The other camera stays outside in the light, but whatever the first camera touches, the second camera instantly sees. That's insane!
That is a brilliant analogy. It uses quantum entanglement. Because the photons in the two beams are entangled, analyzing the beam that never touched the target gives you the image of the target hidden in the smoke. It bypasses the visual obstruction entirely.
Unbelievable. For secure communication, they use QKD, quantum key distribution. This generates theoretically unhackable encryption keys. But how is QKD actually better than the end-to-end encryption we have on our messaging apps today, like WhatsApp?
Current encryption relies on complex math. A supercomputer could eventually break that math.
Okay.
QKD relies on the fundamental laws of physics. If an eavesdropper tries to intercept a quantum key, the quantum state of the particles changes immediately. The sender and receiver instantly know the key is compromised and drop the connection. It is theoretically unhackable.
They're also developing quantum materials that offer adaptive camouflage, literally materials that can change properties dynamically. For chip inspection, quantum sensors can detect manufacturing defects or hardware trojans.
And finally, quantum computing handles complex logistics optimization.
So, if we look at how this changes the battlefield fundamentally, what are the top takeaways for a UPSC mains answer?
First, absolute informational dominance through unhackable communication networks using QKD. Second, the elimination of stealth as we know it. Today's stealth fighters and submarines are designed to evade radar and sonar, but quantum sensors and ghost imaging will be able to detect them easily.
Super clear. Time for a quick memory anchor. Pause and practice saying, QKD ensures theoretically unhackable secure communication.
Spot on.
In short, क्वांटम टेक्नोलॉजी सेना को बिना जीपीएस नेविगेट करने, कोहरे में देखने और 100% सुरक्षित बात करने की ताकत देती है.
Yes.
Which leads us perfectly into our final topic. Topic 4, Advanced Technology and Border Management.
Because everything connects back to the borders.
Right. Basically, border guarding is no longer just a soldier's duty. We are deploying AI, smart fencing, and anti-drone tech.
Think back to the tragic 26/11 attacks in Mumbai. That infiltration happened via the maritime domain because there were gaps in coastal surveillance. Modern advanced tech systems are designed to eliminate those exact blind spots across all terrains.
Recently, the Union Home Minister really emphasized adopting these advanced tech solutions. Our adversaries are using encrypted comms and drones. We are seeing a massive surge in drones dropping narcotics and weapons in the western sector and tunnels being dug underground.
And we also have to manage difficult terrains like shifting eastern riverine borders.
Let's detail the actual tech being deployed. We have smart fencing like the electronic systems under CIBMS and bold Q-tight that deter and intercept threats.
Right.
Hang on. Physical fences just get washed away in riverine borders like the Brahmaputra.
They do.
So how does bold Q-tight actually work on water?
Bold QIT stands for Border Electronically Dominated QRT Interception Technique.
Okay.
It creates an invisible electronic fence using microwaves, lasers, and sonar over the water. If an intruder crosses that invisible barrier, the sensors instantly trigger an alarm, and quick reaction teams intercept them.
Oh, that's smart. Then there is integrated surveillance using AI systems that provide live video feeds. But wait, with all this AI and camera tech, will they completely replace the Jawans on the ground eventually?
No. Tech is an enabler, not a replacement. AI and cameras act as the eyes and ears, detecting anomalies perfectly. But you still need trained Jawans as the kinetic response to physically apprehend the intruder.
Ah, I see.
It shifts the soldier's role from tedious observation to targeted rapid reaction, which greatly reduces troop fatigue.
For space and aerial tech, we use UAVs and satellites like Cartosat and RISAT-2A. To counter aerial threats, we use anti-drone systems, like the ones at VO Chidambaranar Port Authority. We are also using predictive analytics to forecast migration trends.
And for identity control at borders, RFID and biometrics are crucial. And to tie it all together, we have database interoperability using NatGrid, which connects databases from various agencies.
Is NatGrid only used at the borders, or does it help stop internal terrorism too?
It is for holistic national security. NatGrid is a centralized intelligence grid. If a suspect crosses a border checkpoint, NatGrid instantly cross-checks their biometrics against bank records, telecom data, and criminal watch lists nationwide.
Wow.
It connects border security directly to internal counterterrorism.
To promote this integration, the government is rolling out Stage 2 and Stage 3 of CIBMS covering 1,955 kilometers. The BSF is introducing an AI-powered smart border observation system.
They are also investing in solar-powered surveillance towers.
And finally, there is a push to create a border security technology oversight authority. Why do we need an oversight authority for this? I mean, is it more security always better?
Well, with massive biometric data collection and drone surveillance, there are massive privacy and legal concerns. The Oversight Authority ensures that border agencies use this tech strictly within legal frameworks, preventing the misuse of citizen data and ensuring accountability.
Say baat hai. If someone were to critically analyze the challenges of integrating all this tech, how should they frame it?
Always present challenges structurally in your answers. Talk about infrastructural challenges, like the lack of reliable high-speed internet in remote areas.
Okay.
Then mention environmental challenges, like extreme cold, freezing battery packs. Finally, offer the solution, such as solar-powered towers and satellite comms.
Very structured. Let's do one last practice cue. Pause and practice saying. NatGrid ensures real-time cross-checking of databases for counter-terrorism.
Perfect.
In short, advanced technology like AI, space surveillance और anti-drone systems border security को smart, fast और जवानों के लिए कम थकाऊ बना रही है. याद रखना.
It is a complete paradigm shift in how we secure our territorial integrity.
तो यार आज हमने security challenges and their management in border areas के तहत modernizing India's defense and border infrastructure का पूरा analysis कर दिया. Let's quickly summarize.
Yes, let's recap.
First, we analyzed our borders with 6 countries, from Galwan to the drone issues in Punjab and how initiatives like CIBMS are adapting to these unique terrains.
Second, we looked at the Sudarshan Chakra mission and Project Kusha, which will turn India's skies into an invincible multi-layered fortress by 2035.
Third, we explored the fascinating world of quantum tech in the armed forces, where QKD and ghost imaging are rewriting the rules of secure communication and warfare.
And finally, we discussed advanced technology, where AI, NatGrid, and smart electronic fencing are taking border management to the absolute next level.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over. Today we talked a lot about state-of-the-art tech like laser weapons, AI, and quantum hacking being developed by governments.
Yeah.
The good guys having the best toys, basically.
Exactly. But just imagine what happens when this kind of decentralized, highly advanced technology inevitably falls into the hands of non-state actors. like terrorist organizations or cartels.
Oof.
How will global policing and security systems adapt when the enemy has the exact same futuristic tools? Thoda soch lo is par.
That is a heavy and very real question, yaar. Well, hope you loved this deep dive. Keep
Today's
learning,
topic
keep
name
exploring.
is 4. Maritime Security at a Glance.
And broad micro theme is securing India's massive coastline and deep sea interests from modern hybrid threats.
Exactly. Can you imagine that around 80% of India's external trade or 90% energy trade सिर्फ Indian Ocean region IOR के through happen होता है,
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is huge.
right?
बिल्कुल.
अगर ये चोक हो गया तो पूरी economy just stops यार.
बिल्कुल रुक जाएगी. I mean, it is terrifying.
Think about the 26/11 attack.
Oh.
The vulnerabilities are very real. So how do we protect something so massive?
It is a terrifying thought, honestly. We usually think of national security as just guarding our land borders, Anna.
Right.
Like the LOC and all. Exactly. But our oceans are our actual lifelines. I mean, if those lifelines are threatened, everything from your petrol prices to your basic grocery supply chain gets completely disrupted.
Makes total sense. So here is our learning map for today, guys. We are covering 5 massive areas. First, we will decode our maritime security architecture.
Okay.
Second, we will look into defense modernization. Third, we are unpacking the theaterization of defense.
Basically moving to one theater, one command.
You got it. Fourth, we will explore multi-domain operations where military and civilian tech merge. And finally, we will navigate the invisible battlefield of cyberspace operations. Sab ekdam logical flow mein cover hoga. So grab your notes and let's go.
It is going to be an intense, high-value discussion today. I am super excited.
Awesome. Let's kick off with our first chunk, India's Maritime Security Architecture and Challenges. The heading here is Maritime Security at a Glance.
Right.
So basically, maritime security means protecting the nation's sovereignty from ocean and sea-based threats. It sounds simple, but the execution is incredibly complex.
It really is. A brilliant real-life example of our capability happened in 2024.
Oh, wait, you mean the pirate one?
Exactly. When the Indian Navy rescued the hijacked Bulgarian vessel, the Ruin. They executed this flawless operation in the high seas.
That was crazy, yaar.
I know, right? That incident single-handedly showed the world our true capability against modern piracy.
It was literally like a movie plot. So let's set the introduction here. Having a strong presence in the IOR is absolutely crucial for India. The 26/11 Mumbai attack brutally highlighted our coastal vulnerabilities.
It really did.
And after that, we really had to wake up and overhaul our entire system. The background here is driven by heavy geostrategic interests.
Right, because we are actively countering Chinese influence in the region.
Exactly. And our ultimate goal is to be a net security provider in the IOR. Plus, executing HADR, humanitarian assistance and disaster relief operations, has become our major responsibility.
Absolutely. So how is this actually structured? The core logic is based on a 5-pillar architecture.
Okay, break it down for me.
Think of it like a series of layered defensive rings. First, the Indian Navy handles overall maritime security in the deep blue waters.
Right. The main fleet.
Second, the Indian Coast Guard or ICG secures our territorial waters and they patrol alongside the local marine police.
Okay, got it.
Third, we have the Border Security Force, the BSF.
Okay.
Fourth is the Central Industrial Security Force, CISF,
Right.
guarding the physical gates of our major ports.
Okay.
And fifth, the Sagar Suraksha Dal, which are basically fishermen groups acting as trained volunteers on the ground.
Wow, that is a very comprehensive net. But the challenges must be insane, right?
Oh, totally. We are dealing with piracy, maritime terrorism, and border disputes with Pakistan and Sri Lanka.
Right.
Then you have the rising influence of the USA and China. Chinese dual-use facilities in Myanmar and Sri Lanka are a huge headache.
Yeah, that string of poles strategy, right?
Exactly. And internally, according to a recent CAG report, the lackadaisical approach of state governments is a major vulnerability.
Wait, really?
Like how? We are talking about unspent funds, manpower shortages, and underused patrol boats. Plus, environmental threats like climate change, oil spills, and extreme weather are making the oceans more unpredictable.
But we are fighting back, right? The steps taken are pretty solid.
Bilkul, we have Sagar Kavach, which are massive coastal surveillance exercises We have the proposed Maritime Theatre Command, the MTC.
Right.
We also set up the IFC IOR, the Information Fusion Center for Real-Time Domain Awareness, and recently the Coastal Shipping Act 2025 was introduced.
And diplomatically, we are doing a lot too, right?
Yeah, regionally diplomatic initiatives like Sagar, Mahasagar, IORA, and IONS are boosting our collaboration.
Awesome. So from a real-world impact and UPSC relevance perspective, if you're writing a GS Paper 3 internal security answer, this 5-point framework is your way forward.
Right? Focus on free trade dispute resolution, connectivity, threat response, and environmental protection.
Exactly. To conclude this segment, we must strengthen our surveillance with high-frequency radar networks.
Definitely.
We need to secure our blue economy potential like deep-sea mining and aggressively boost our maritime diplomacy through Quad and IONS.
Bilkul sahi.
Let's do some cross-questioning to really understand this. I'm a bit confused about the third pillar. BSF is meant for land borders, right? Why are they in this maritime architecture?
That is a very common doubt, yaar. But think about the coastal areas in Gujarat, creeks, or the Sundarbans in Bengal.
Oh, right, the swamps.
Exactly. These are extremely difficult marshy terrains where normal boats or land vehicles fail. BSF has specialized water wings to do surveillance in these exact muddy complex zones. Yaad rakhna.
Ah, that makes total sense. And you mentioned India wanting to be a net security provider. What does that practically mean on the ground?
Basically, when there is a disaster or a security crisis in the Indian Ocean region, like a tsunami or a piracy hijack, India becomes the first responder.
Oh, okay.
We provide the security blanket and relief for our smaller neighboring countries instead of them relying on external superpowers.
Got it. But why is the state government's role so weak? That CAG report sounds alarming.
It is alarming. The CAG report pointed out severe lack of coordination. Funds are sitting unspent.
Wow.
Yeah, there is a massive manpower shortage in the marine police, and the high-speed patrol boats they do have are underused because of maintenance issues. It is a classic administrative bottleneck.
We really need to fix that. Now, how does the IFC IOR help? What is its actual job?
It is an information fusion center. Imagine a giant control room collecting real-time radar data, satellite feeds, and intelligence from international partners.
Like a central hub.
Exactly. It fuses all this data to track every single ship in the region, to enable complete maritime domain awareness. You can't fight what you can't see, samjhe?
That is brilliant. Final question on this topic. What is the core focus of the Coastal Shipping Act 2025?
This act basically regulates the vessels engaged in internal trade within Indian coastal waters. It ensures that domestic trade routes are secure, documented, and not being used as a cover for smuggling or infiltration.
Super clear, yaar. Now pause and practice saying. The architecture includes Indian Navy, ICG, BSF, CISF, and Sagar Suraksha Dal.
Saying it out loud builds that retention, guys.
Finding these UPSC linkages helpful, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and join our community for the detailed notes. We bring these high-energy deep dives every single day.
It is the smartest way to stay ahead of the information overload. Trust me.
All right. Let's shift gears to topic 4.1, Defense Modernization. The heading here is Need and Challenges in Defense Modernization.
Right.
So modernization basically involves continuously upgrading our weapons, platforms, and tech so our armed forces stay ready for evolving security threats.
Think about it this way. Imagine trying to fight a modern cyber warfare campaign using old analog systems and paper files.
That would be a disaster.
Exactly. You just can't. That is why upgrading our submarines, fighter aircraft, and digital networks is not a luxury. It's an absolute survival necessity.
Exactly. The introduction is stark. Our strategic environment is changing rapidly. China's assertiveness in the Indian Ocean is increasing. So, relying on outdated tech is strategic suicide.
Bilkul.
The background is that the rapidly changing landscape of warfare, especially hybrid and cyber warfare, demands a completely fresh approach.
The core logic here stems from obvious needs. We have an inadequate number of modern aircraft squadrons and submarines, plus our HADR capabilities need constant enhancement.
But the challenges we face are just wild, yaar. First, budget allocation issues.
Oh yeah, the budget is a huge issue.
The majority of the defense budget goes straight to salaries and pensions, leaving very limited funds for actual R&D.
हाँ, और slow decision making भी. Guys, it takes 7 to 9 years just to finalize an acquisition contract.
7 to 9 years, that is crazy.
It is a bureaucratic nightmare. The third challenge is technological limitations. We lack a deep domestic ecosystem to design advanced components like jet engines.
Right, we mostly import them.
Exactly. And fourth, stalled structural reforms. Things like integrated theater commands get delayed because of inter-service rivalries.
But we are making moves, na? 2025 was declared as the year of reforms.
Yes, finally.
We passed the Inter-Services Organizations Act 2023, empowering the Chief of Defense Staff, the CDS.
We are pushing indigenization heavily through DAP 2020, the SRI Jayan portal, and schemes like ADT and IDEX to fund MSMEs.
The R&D push is massive now. 25% of the defense R&D budget is reserved for the private sector and academia.
Oh wow, that's a big chunk. It is. FTI is up to 74% via the automatic route and 100% via the government route. We're even preparing for space warfare with Mission Def Space and Mission Shakti, our ASAT or anti-satellite weapon.
Real-world impact time for UPSC GS3, Atmanirbhar Bharat in defense is a huge topic.
Oh, absolutely.
The way forward must include a non-lapsable defense modernization fund as proposed by the 15th Finance Commission. Also, implementing the Ramarao Committee recommendations like BRADS, the Board of Research for Advanced Defense Sciences, and the Shekatkar Committee recommendations are crucial.
To conclude, we need to boost the private sector role using the 5 I's. Identify, incubate, innovate, integrate, and indigenous. Fast-tracking the AMCA Stealth Fighter project is the positive step forward we need.
Let's unpack this with some cross questions. I'm still stuck on the timeline. 7 to 9 years just to finalize a contract. Why such a massive delay?
It is entirely because of red tape, fear of corruption allegations, leading to overcautious bureaucracy, and endless cycles of multiple field trials.
Makes sense.
That's why the DAP 2020 and the indigenization push are so important to cut through this madness.
And what exactly is the budget bottleneck? You mentioned salaries.
Yes, dekho, the maximum part of the defense budget is revenue expenditure, which covers salaries and pensions.
Okay.
So the capital expenditure bucket, the money actually used to buy new tech and fund R&D, gets severely squeezed.
Wow, that's tough. How does empowering the CDS help solve these issues?
The CDS can legally issue joint orders across the Army, Navy, and Air Force. This breaks down silos, streamlines acquisitions, and reduces inter-service rivalry significantly.
That is super useful. You also mentioned space warfare. What are we exactly doing there?
Space is the new high ground here. We launched Mission Def Space to foster startup innovation in space defense.
Nice.
And Mission Shakti demonstrated our ASAT capability, proving we can defend our space assets from enemy anti-satellite missiles.
Brilliant. Finally, why did the 15th Finance Commission recommend a non-lapsable fund?
Usually, if budget funds are unspent by March 31st, they lapse and return to the government.
Right.
A non-lapsable fund ensures that this unused money can be carried forward to the next financial year, specifically for long-term modernization projects.
That is such a smart fix here. Now pause and practice saying, modernization faces budget, slow decision-making, and technological limitation challenges.
Rehearsing these exact phrases will save you so much time in your exams.
Mini recap. In short, defense modernization is shifting from heavy import dependency to indigenous innovation and massive structural reforms.
Spot on.
All right, let's seamlessly transition into topic 4.2, theaterization of defense. The heading here is Integrated Theater Commands, or ITCs. Basically, this means bringing the Army, Navy, and Air Force under specific theater commands based on geography for unified action.
Let me give you a micro story to visualize this. Think back to the Kargil War. Because the branches were operating independently, poor coordination caused a critical delay in deploying air power.
Oh man, yeah, that was a huge issue.
Exactly. Theaterization ensures that this lack of synergy never happens again.
The introduction to this topic is quite spicy. Recently, the Air Chief Marshal actually cautioned against rushing this theaterization plan. It's complex, yaar.
It really is.
The background is that right now we have 17 separate service-specific commands. 7 Army, 7 Air Force, 3 Navy. And they all operate independently.
Engaging with this fragmented system makes our approach very complex in a fast war.
Exactly. The core logic is clear. The aim is to combine the resources of all 3 services under one unified command structure.
Right? The need is addressing coordination gaps and adapting to modern warfare needs like UAVs and cyber ops.
And strategic deterrence too, Anna.
Yes, China's PLA already operates a highly integrated Western theater command against our borders. We have to match that.
We also need resource efficiency to eliminate duplication, and we need swift decision-making to shorten what military planners call the sensor-to-shooter loop.
Exactly.
So what steps are we taking? We created the CDS in 2019 and the Department of Military Affairs, the DMA, in 2020.
We passed the Inter-Services Organizations Act 2023, currently covering the Andaman and Nicobar Command, Defense Space Agency, and NDA.
Right.
And Joint Logistic Nodes, JLNs, have been operational since 2021 in Mumbai, Guwahati, and Port Blair.
Plus, the Strategic Forces Command for Nuclear Weapons was set up in 2003, and we established HQ IDS for higher-level management.
But the challenges are massive, yaar. First, inter-service dissonance. The army is huge, so there is a fear of their dominance in budget and manpower. Second, transition difficulties. Restructuring could cause a disruptive impact on our current combat readiness.
True.
Third, domain knowledge. Like, can an army commander truly understand how to strategically deploy Air Force fighter jets?
Good question.
And fourth, cost and industrial base limitations.
For real-world impact and UPSC GS2 and 3, the way ahead requires a wider defense industrial base. Harmonizing doctrines across branches, developing core strategy documents, and potentially replicating a functional integration model like the US Cyber Command.
The conclusion here is that we need a cautious approach. Structural changes at the HQ IDS level should precede the rollout of actual theater commands to ensure the foundation is rock solid.
Let's debate this a bit. I need you to explain this sensor-to-shooter loop. How does it actually work?
Imagine a drone, which is the sensor, spots an enemy tank. In the old system, the drone operator reports to his commander, who reports to HQ, who then calls the Air Force, who then scrambles a jet, which is the shooter.
That sounds like it takes forever.
It does. A single theater commander eliminates all those middle approvals, drastically compressing the time between spotting and destroying the target.
That is mind-blowing. And what is China's advantage here right now?
China's PLA already operates a fully integrated Western theater command. One single commander controls all their land, air, and missile assets along the Indian border, giving them an incredibly fast response time.
Okay. Why is the Army's dominance creating an issue with the other branches?
Because the Army has the most troops and budget, the Navy and Air Force fear that in a unified command, they will lose their operational autonomy.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they fear their assets will just be used as support tools for ground troops rather than strategically.
Makes sense. What about these JLNs, the Joint Logistic Nodes? What do they do?
Set up in Mumbai, Guwahati, and Port Blair, these nodes integrate logistics. Instead of the Army, Navy, and Air Force buying separate fuel, spare parts, and rations, they share these facilities.
That must save so much money.
S resource. If you permanently divide our limited fighter squadrons into smaller geographic theaters, their overall strategic flexibility gets diluted.
Ah, okay.
Domain knowledge is a very real concern.
Super clear. Now pause and practice saying, theaterization replaces 17 separate commands with unified geographic theater commands.
Practice that transition in your head, guys.
Mini recap. In short, this idea shows how unity of command optimizes resources and enables decisive, lightning-fast military action.
Absolutely.
Moving on to a crazy futuristic concept. Topic 4.3. India's Joint Doctrine for Multi-Domain Operations. The heading here is Understanding the Whole-of-Nation Approach. Multi-domain operations, or MDO, is the synchronized deployment of both military and non-military capabilities across all domains simultaneously.
Let me give you an analogy. Think of warfare like a symphony.
Okay.
In the past, only the Army, Navy, and Air Force played their instruments. Today, in an MDO symphony, IT firms, space agencies, cybersecurity hackers, and intelligence networks are all playing together at the exact same time to completely overwhelm the enemy.
That is such a dope way to look at it. The introduction is that our Raksha Mantri recently released the Joint Doctrine for Multi-Domain Operations. It's a game changer.
It really is.
The background is that future wars won't just be fought on physical borders. Hackers, satellites, and even social media perceptions are the new battlefields.
The core logic relies on two things. First, the whole-of-nation approach, which means fusing military power with civilian innovation, the private sector, and academia.
Right.
Second, simultaneous conversions. This means orchestrating kinetic and non-kinetic activities to completely disrupt the adversary's decision-making cycle.
We are operating across 6 domains now. Land for ground ops, sea for trade routes, air for UAVs and reconnaissance, space for comms and imagery, cyber for network warfare, and the cognitive domain for influence ops, targeting human perception.
Exactly. Also, MDO is very different from traditional joint operations.
How so?
MDO uses non-military entities, is decentralized, highly integrated, using AI, big data analytics, and autonomous systems.
Okay.
Most importantly, the ODTA cycle is compressed across domains. Joint ops were mainly just military branches working sequentially.
For real-world impact, if you use concepts like cognitive warfare and compressed ODTA cycle in your mains answers, you are showing elite-level understanding of modern security paradigms.
Definitely.
The conclusion is undeniable. You cannot win a modern war without integrating the civilian tech ecosystem. Let's get into the cross questions. I'm fascinated by this cognitive domain. What exactly is it?
It is the ultimate psychological warfare, yaar. It is about manipulating the enemy's perception, their decision-making process, and public psychology using tailored information, deepfakes, and social media algorithms.
Like brainwashing, basically.
Yeah, you hack the human mind before you even hack the computer.
That is terrifying. So how does this whole-of-nation approach practically work?
It means the military doesn't fight alone. ISRO provides the satellite data. Private IT firms secure the networks. Civilian cybersecurity experts launch digital counterattacks, and universities develop the AI algorithms, all synchronized for a single national objective.
Wow. And you mentioned the OODA cycle being compressed. What is OODA?
Observe, orient, decide, act. In MDO, because we use AI and big data, we process information so fast that our OODA cycle becomes drastically shorter than the enemy's.
So they can't even react.
Exactly. By the time they orient, we have already acted. They are paralyzed because they can't react fast enough.
Could you give an example of kinetic and non-kinetic activities happening at the same time?
Kinetic is physical destruction, like an airstrike on a military base. Non-kinetic is happening at the exact same second, like hacking their national power grid to cause a blackout and flooding their social media with fake news that their leadership has surrendered.
Simultaneous chaos.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing. So what is the biggest difference between joint ops and MDO?
Joint ops is just collaboration between the military branches, Army, Navy, Air Force. MDO brings in the entire civilian, private, public ecosystem, space agencies, and cyber networks seamlessly into the battlefield.
Got it. Now pause and practice saying. MDO involves land, sea, air, space, cyber, and cognitive domains simultaneously.
Keep that list memorized, guys.
Mini recap. In short, this idea shows how warfare has evolved beyond physical domains into cognitive and digital realms, requiring total whole-of-nation synergy.
Perfectly summarized.
All right, our last major conceptual chunk, topic 4.4, Joint Doctrine for Cyberspace Operations. The heading here is the invisible battlefield of cyberspace. Cyberspace operations involve defending critical digital infrastructure and launching cyber countermeasures against adversaries.
Here is a chilling real-life example. In 2026, during the US-Venezuela conflict, we saw Operation Absolute Resolve.
Okay, what happened there?
US cyber attacks triggered targeted blackouts and telecom disruptions before a single airstrike was launched. They caused real-world physical damage entirely from a computer terminal.
That is insane here. The introduction is that the CDS and Secretary DMA have released declassified versions of the joint doctrines for cyberspace operations.
Right.
The background is simple. Cyberspace has become a highly contested domain because the entry barriers are incredibly low and the anonymity is dangerously high.
Let's look at the core logic through some recent case studies. First, Russia-Ukraine in 2025, where state-backed actors used AI-enabled tools to systematically target infrastructure.
Yeah, that was huge.
Second, India-Pak Operation Sindoor in 2025. Pakistan-sponsored actors launched DDoS attacks, phishing, and deepfake disinformation against Indian networks.
Wow.
Third, Israel-Iran 25-26. We saw crypto theft, data wiping, and psychological ops. Fourth, US-Venezuela Op Absolute Resolve, which we just discussed. And fifth, Thailand-Cambodia 2025, which was reciprocal cyber attacks running alongside a physical border dispute.
The challenges are immense here. It is a highly contested arena with high anonymity and intense geopolitical competition. We face diverse threat actors from state militaries to non-state hackers on the darknet.
Right, our ISR systems are vulnerable too.
Exactly. The warfighting impact causes actual physical effects like infrastructure failure. And the biggest issue, civil-military interdependence leading to the blurring of targets.
From a real-world impact perspective, for UPSC GS3, the way forward is critical. We urgently need indigenization or Atmanirbharta of our hardware and operating systems.
Definitely.
We need cyber training through centers of excellence and CTF exercises. We must secure the supply chain for our Defense Critical Information Infrastructure, the DCII.
Okay.
Cyber diplomacy is key. We need to adopt emerging tech like quantum computing, user behavioral analytics, UBA, and microsegmentation.
And what about the network architecture?
Most importantly, Zero Trust Architecture, ZTA, and critical network protection via air-gapped networks.
The conclusion is a hard reality. If your digital borders are open, your physical borders cannot be secured.
Exactly.
Let's debate this. I want to know more about Operation Sindoor. What exactly happened there?
In 2025, Pakistan-sponsored actors attempted a massive mass intrusion. They combined deepfakes to create public panic, sent targeted phishing emails to officials, and launched millions of DDoS attacks to crash Indian networks all at once.
That sounds like coordinated digital warfare.
It was exactly that.
How does a cyber attack actually cause physical infrastructure to fail? Like, how does code break a machine?
Think back to Venezuela. The hackers didn't just steal data, they sent malicious digital commands to the industrial control systems of the power grids.
Okay.
The computers literally told the physical switches to shut off and overload. Digital code caused a physical citywide blackout.
That is wild. Now you mentioned Zero Trust Architecture, ZTA.
Yeah.
What is the logic behind that?
The core logic of ZTA is never trust, always verify. Old networks used to assume that if someone is logged in on the inside, they are safe.
Right. Like a firewall.
But ZTA constantly and continuously verifies every single access request and data packet, even if the user is already deep inside the defense network.
What about air-gap networks? How secure are they?
They are the ultimate security. An air-gap network is a highly classified military computer system that is physically disconnected from the internet and any other network.
So no Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth.
None. You literally cannot hack it remotely. An enemy would need physical access with a USB drive to infect it.
Why is civil-military interdependence such a huge challenge in cyber warfare?
Because the modern military relies heavily on civilian infrastructure, yaar. They use civilian power grids, commercial telecom lines, and internet routing.
Oh, I see.
If an adversary hacks the civilian tech, the military operations get directly paralyzed, even if the military's own servers are untouched.
Mind blown, yaar. Now, pause and practice saying Zero Trust Architecture and protecting defense critical information infrastructure are essential.
This specific vocabulary will elevate your answers, guys.
Mini recap. In short, this idea shows how cyber superiority is a strict prerequisite for national security in the 21st century.
Couldn't agree more.
All right, guys, we are in the final stretch. Topic 4.6, practice question and keywords. The heading is Cyberspace as an Independent Domain of Warfare. We are basically synthesizing all this knowledge to examine its significance for India's national security, for your UPSC mains.
When structuring this answer, your introduction must clearly state that cyberspace operations are the newest operational domain operating right alongside land, sea, air, and space.
Exactly. For the background, emphasize its strategic importance because of our massive reliance on IT, the digital economy, and network-centric warfare capabilities.
Right.
In the core logic, Body Part 1 should focus on strategic importance and applications. This is where you name-drop MDO, Zero Trust Architecture, and Atmanirbharta.
And Body Part 2 should cover emerging challenges and vulnerabilities, talk about the high anonymity, the op sindoor, deepfakes, and the dangerous blurring of civil and military targets.
Perfect. And for real-world impact, your conclusion needs to hit hard. Emphasize the desperate need for strong cyber deterrence and defense, using elite keywords like integrated battle space, cognitive warfare, and strategic autonomy.
That is exactly how you score top marks.
Now, pause and practice mentally structuring this answer. Intro, 2 body paragraphs, and a hard-hitting conclusion.
Mental structuring is how you win the time management game in the exam hall, guys.
Mini recap. In short, use real case studies like OPSINDOR to make your UPSC answers stand out.
Absolutely.
Okay guys, let's wrap this massive deep dive. Final recap time. Let's run through the broad micro-theme takeaways.
Right, let's do it.
For maritime security, the 5-point framework and the Maritime Theatre Command are absolutely essential to protect 80% of our external trade.
For defense modernization, the focus has to be on R&D, Atmanirbharta, and cutting down those insane 7 to 9 year acquisition delays.
For theorization, we are moving from 17 fragmented commands to unified geographic theaters to drastically shorten the sensor-to-shooter loop.
For multi-domain operations, it's all about integrating military with civilian tech like AI, cyber, and cognitive ops for a true whole-of-nation approach.
And for cyberspace operations, implementing zero trust architecture is mandatory to defend against hybrid threats like Operation Sindoor and Absolute Resolve.
Elite keywords to remember, guys. Network-centric warfare, OODA cycle, cognitive domain, and ZTA.
If you can connect these concepts, you truly understand the modern security landscape of India.
You really do.
Keep revising, keep connecting the dots. और याद रखना, if your digital borders are open, your physical borders cannot be secured. थोड़ा सोच लो इस पर. Let's crack this. See you in the next computing software that you use every single day to, I don't know, like organize your photos or analyze some basic data could actually be classified as a military weapon under international law.
Oh yeah.
Sounds completely insane, right?
It really does.
लेकिन आज की दुनिया में सिविलियन टेक और मिलिट्री वेपन्स के बीच का लाइन बिल्कुल ब्लर हो चुका है.
हाँ, completely blur हो चुका है.
Right. So welcome to the deep dive, guys. आज हम एक massive exploration करने वाले हैं about global security architectures and really कैसे India is transforming from a massive arms importer to a little global defense manufacturing powerhouse.
Exactly. It's a huge shift.
It is. And to unpack this, आज की deep dive में हम इन exact topics को break down करेंगे step by step. याद रखना, we are going completely in order.
Right.
First, we'll decode the Wassenaar arrangement. Then we'll shift to India's defense industry. After that, we'll lock down the essential keywords you need, for this subject.
Very important for the exams.
Yeah, super important. And finally, we'll tackle a full practice question to see how all this fits into a real exam scenario. So, ready? So, chalo, let's start with our first major topic.
Let's do it.
So, topic name, the Wassenaar arrangement. If a piece of software is a weapon, who gets to decide who buys it?
Well, that's exactly what this is about. The broad micro theme we are looking at here is the multilateral export control regime and emerging tech challenges.
Okay.
Basically, the Wassenaar arrangement is a massive global club. It was established back in 1996, and its main job is to monitor and control the export of conventional arms and what we call dual-use goods.
Okay, dual-use goods. Let's ground this before we get into the heavy geopolitics, yaar. Think of a high-performance computer. एक मूवी स्टूडियो इसको like 3D animation render करने के लिए use कर सकता है, right?
Right, totally harmless.
Yeah, completely harmless. या फिर a rogue nation could buy that exact same computer to calculate the trajectory of a ballistic missile.
Exactly.
That is the classic dual-use dilemma. समझे?
That is the perfect micro story to understand this. And that brings us to the background and why this is basically exploding in the news right now.
Right.
So this arrangement succeeded the Cold War era COCOM.
Mm-hmm.
And for decades, I mean, it worked fine for physical goods. But today, emerging technologies like artificial intelligence have entered the military domain, and it is creating like severe challenges for Wasana's existing control mechanisms.
Wait. I need to push back here. If this thing was set up in 1996 when the internet was basically, dial-up and floppy disks, how on earth are they trying to regulate a cloud server or an AI algorithm today? That makes zero sense.
It doesn't make sense, and that is exactly the core logic of the crisis they are facing right now. So currently, there are 42 participating states. India was admitted in 2017, which was, great for us.
Yeah, massive win.
But the system is facing massive hurdles. The biggest one, like you just hinted at, is the outdated export concept.
Right.
The entire treaty was designed for physical transfers at shipping ports, completely ignoring how easy it is to access technology via the cloud.
Right. Because if I rent server space, say, in a different country, and I access an AI model through an API, did an export just happen?
Technically.
Nobody shipped a physical box, yeah?
Exactly.
And this creates massive cloud and SaaS gaps.
Ah.
The regime struggles to classify remote APIs and software as a service. Then you have institutional vulnerabilities. It's a consensus-based gridlock. Any single member out of the 42 can just raise their hand and block a reform. So updating the control lists takes forever.
And from what I read in our sources, it's also voluntary implementation, right? So even if they agree, national discretion leads to uneven enforcement. Plus, there is a total lack of agility.
Right.
Like AI updates its capabilities every few months. A 40-nation treaty cannot keep pace with that.
No, it can't.
And beyond the tech, there's a huge policy gap, which is a limited human rights focus.
Oh, how so?
Well, the treaty focuses on military threats, but it completely fails to address digital repression tech, like mass surveillance software used against citizens. And whenever someone tries to reform this, states resist, citing their own sovereignty.
So we have an outdated system, gridlock, and AI moving at light speed. What's the real-world impact of this? Especially from an exam perspective, say for UPSC GS Paper 2 in International Relations.
The real-world impact is that global governance protocols are lagging dangerously behind modern tech evolution. To fix this, we need to expand the control lists to include mass surveillance tech, but, without banning legitimate uses.
Right.
Crucially, they have to redefine the word export to treat API access and remote administration as actual exports. And we need binding obligations, minimum licensing standards that every country must follow.
Okay, let's explore the mechanics of this with some cross-questioning, because I really want to know how this actually works for India. अगर Wassenaar completely physical goods पे focused है, तो इंडिया अपने डोमेस्टिक क्लाउड सर्विसेज और एआई एक्सपोर्ट्स को यूपीएससी GS2 के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में कैसे रेगुलेट करेगा?
That's a really critical policy question. Domestically, India has to upgrade its own SCOMIT list.
Which stands for?
Special chemicals, organisms, materials, equipment, and technologies.
Got it.
We have to legally define digital transfers in our foreign trade policy. So, an API ping crossing a national server boundary must be treated legally as a physical export.
Interesting. Now let's zoom out a bit. Wassenaar isn't the only club. We have the MTCR for missiles, which India joined in 2016.
Right.
We have the Australia Group for Chemical Weapons, joined in 2018, but we are not in the Nuclear Suppliers Group, the NSG. So, NSG में इंडिया की non-membership हमारे strategic autonomy को कैसे affect करती है, compared to our presence in WNA or MTCR?
It creates a severe bottleneck for nuclear commerce.
Oh.
See, in Wassenaar and MTCR, we sit at the table and make the rules. Outside the NSG, our civilian nuclear program relies on case-by-case waivers. We don't have a permanent voice in global nuclear rule-making, which forces us to rely on bilateral deals rather than multilateral rights.
Makes total sense. But wait, going back to Wasana's consensus gridlock. If one country can block everything, consensus-based gridlock एक major issue है, तो global multilateral platforms का future क्या है?
Honestly, we are seeing a massive shift from multilateral to unilateral.
Really?
Yeah. Countries like the US and the EU are just imposing their own semiconductor export bans, bypassing Wassenaar entirely due to geopolitical pressures. The future might be small, agile coalitions rather than 40-nation consensus clubs.
What about the human rights angle? You mentioned human rights-based end-use controls, but human rights-based end-use controls को include करना, क्या ये developing nations के industrial growth को hinder करेगा?
It's a very delicate balance. On one hand, you want to prevent dictatorships from buying surveillance tech.
Sure.
But developing nations often rely on cheap imported digital infrastructure to grow. Stricter human rights controls could easily be weaponized by developed nations as non-tariff trade barriers, freezing emerging economies out of critical digital growth.
Wow. Okay, last question on this. जो dual use digital infrastructure है, उसको regulate करने के लिए इंडिया को domestic policy में exactly क्या changes लाने चाहिए?
Beyond updating the ESCOMET list, we need an interministerial body combining the Ministry of External Affairs, Ministry of Defense, and METI. They need to evaluate software exports, not just for the code itself, but for the end user's geographic location and intent.
Got it. So, if you are taking notes and want to log this concept in, pause and practice saying, the Wasana arrangement manages export controls for conventional arms and dual-use technologies, but struggles with the intangibility of cloud and AI.
That phrasing perfectly captures the current dilemma.
In short, this idea shows how international security treaties are completely struggling to keep up with cloud computing and AI.
Hey guys, quick pause right here. अगर ये dual use tech और AI का geopolitics वाला concept आपको mind blowing लगा, तो basically जल्दी से subscribe और like कर दो. Turn on those notifications so you never miss out on these premium notes, okay?
Now, moving on to something even bigger. If the global market is getting this restrictive and tech is being locked down by clubs like Wassenaar, what is India doing to protect itself? The answer is, we are building it ourselves. That brings us to our second topic, India's defense industry.
And our broad micro theme here is Atmanirbharta in defense and the manufacturing ecosystem. Basically, this is all about India's massive transition from being dependent on foreign arms to building a completely self-reliant domestic defense manufacturing ecosystem.
Let me give you a real-life example of how wild this shift is. Think about the BrahMos supersonic cruise missile system. For decades, India used to stand in line outside foreign capitals, asking to buy their weapons.
True.
Recently, India actually supplied the BrahMos system to the Philippines. पहले हम foreign countries के बाहर line लगाते थे weapons के लिए, अब हम export कर रहे हैं. So that's cool, ना?
It's a complete paradigm shift. And as an introduction to this dynamic, the defense minister has recently reiterated that the ultimate goal is to achieve Atmanirbharta and make India a global defense production hub.
Right.
The background context is crucial. Historically, we were the world's largest arms importer. Now, the paradigm is entirely shifting.
So let's look at the core logic and the actual numbers, starting with production. FY 2024-25 saw record production at 1.54 lakh crore. That is up 174% from 2014-15.
It's massive.
Defense Public Sector Undertakings, or DPSUs, contributed 77%, while the private sector added 23%. And 65% of military equipment is now domestic. Plus, the private sector share is rising for the third consecutive year.
The exports data is even more staggering, honestly. A 34-fold increase since 2013-14. We now supply to over 100 countries. In 23-24, our top 3 markets were the US, France, and Armenia.
Oh, wow. The US and France?
Yeah. And the Ministry of Defense is aiming for 50,000 crore in exports by 2029. We also have strategic partnerships, like you mentioned, BrahMos to the Philippines, and exports to Sri Lanka, Nepal, and Bhutan.
And we aren't just selling basic gear. The key export products include missiles like BrahMos and Akash SAMs, aviation tech and drones like Dornier 228s and Chetaks, artillery like howitzers, and advanced naval and infantry gear like patrol vessels, thermal imagers, and bulletproof jackets.
Right. And the startup ecosystem is booming. Military tech startup funding rose 61 times from 27 crore in 2016 to over 1,650 crore projected for 2025. Total investments reach 5,248 crores.
So why does this matter? The significance here, from our image data, is first, strategic autonomy. It reduces foreign dependence so our supply isn't cut off during a war or due to sanctions, and enhances sovereign decision-making. Second, economic significance. It reduces the import burden, boosts our trade balance, grows MSMEs, and creates high-skill employment. And third, technology spillover.
Exactly.
And the government is pushing this hard with initiatives. Budgetary prioritization means 75% of the FY 25-26 modernization budget, that's 1.11 lakh crore rupees, is earmarked exclusively for domestic firms. They've built defense industrial corridors in UP and Tamil Nadu, launched positive indigenization lists, and created IDEX to give grants up to 1.5 crore rupees.
Plus the liberalized FDI, 74% on the automatic route and 100% via the government route. And there's the Technology Development Fund and platforms like DefExpo.
But we also have to examine the challenges, because it's not all perfect. Let's do some cross-questioning to dig into this. UPSC GS3 के एंगल से देखें तो प्राइवेट सेक्टर का 23% शेयर इंक्रीज होना, is that enough for true self-reliance?
It's a stat, but no. True self-reliance requires the private sector to move from just being built-to-print manufacturers for government DPSUs to becoming primary system integrators who design the weapons from scratch. Until private R&D drastically overtakes public R&D, we remain dependent.
Okay. You mentioned technology spillover earlier. Technology spillover effect actually civil economy को कैसे boost करता है in the long run? Like, how does building a missile help regular people?
Think about the origins of the internet, or GPS. Both started as military projects. When India invests in secure military communications, that cryptography eventually secures our civilian banking system. Developing advanced materials for fighter jets leads to lighter, more fuel-efficient commercial vehicles. The military funds the initial high-risk R&D, and the civil economy scales it.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, what about FDI? We liberalize FDI to 74% on the automatic route. FDI limit 74% auto route पर होने के बाद भी foreign OEMs critical tech transfer क्यों hold back कर रहे हैं? Why won't they just share the IP?
Because of IP protectionism, foreign defense giants make their real profit on decades of maintenance contracts, spare parts, and upgrades, not the initial sale. If they transfer the know-why of an aero engine, they create a future competitor and kill their own secondary revenue stream.
So they want us as customers, not peers. Got it. Now, about those positive indigenization lists. They literally ban imports to force local manufacturing. Positive indigenization lists long-term manufacturing को boost करती हैं, but क्या ये short-term military readiness को compromise करती हैं?
That is the tightrope walk. If domestic R&D fails to deliver on time, the military faces a capability void. That's why the lists are phased over several years, giving the industry time to build capability without leaving the armed forces immediately vulnerable.
What about the fragmentation of R&D? जो R&D fragmentation DRDO और private sector के बीच है, उसको solve करने के लिए what is the exact policy intervention required?
We need system-wide collaborative frameworks. DRDO shouldn't act as a competitor to private startups. Instead, it should act as a certifier and testing hub. It needs to open its wind tunnels and ballistic labs to private startups at subsidized rates, turning fragmentation into a unified national supply chain.
Brilliant. So, if you're practicing this concept, now pause and practice saying, Atmanirbharta in defense enhances strategic autonomy, drives technology spillover, and boosts the national economy.
Absolutely. The real-world impact for your GS3 answers is that by prioritizing critical tech and public-private synergy, defense indigenization is becoming the ultimate catalyst for India's strategic autonomy and industrial modernization.
In short, this section maps out India's incredible transformation from an import-dependent military to an export-driven global defense hub. So now that we have deeply analyzed the defense ecosystem, let's look at the specific vocabulary you absolutely need to write top-tier answers. Let's move to our next section.
Yes. Topic name. Keywords. And the broad micro-theme here is essential terminology for security and defense.
Basically, ये वो high-impact terms हैं which act as a cheat code for your UPSC answers. Using them properly shows the examiner that you truly understand the subject matrix.
Right. It's all about how you frame your knowledge.
Exactly. Let me give you a real-life example of why this matters. अगर exam में आप simply लिखते हो, India should make its own weapons. It sounds very basic, but when you write, defense indigenization is vital for strategic autonomy, suddenly you sound like a seasoned diplomat. समझे?
Exactly. Vocabulary shapes perception. Integrating these keywords logically is the biggest secret of effective GS Mains answer writing. Let's break them down into categories following the core logic. For export control terms, you must use Wasana arrangement, dual-use goods, export controls, conventional arms, MTCR, Australia Group, and NSG.
And for tech terms, don't just say computers. Use emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, cyber weapons, and digital surveillance.
Right, and for nuclear terms, we are talking about the global nuclear order, nuclear deterrence, nuclear taboo, strategic stability, NPT, TPNW, arms control, nuclear disarmament, credible minimum deterrence, nuclear modernization, AI-enabled warfare, and nuclear risk reduction.
And finally, for defense in India terms, your toolkit must include Atmanirbhar Bharat, defense manufacturing, defense exports, strategic autonomy, defense industrial corridors, positive indigenization lists, IDEX, Technology Development Fund, DPSUs, public-private partnership, technology transfer, defense innovation, defense startups, defense R&D, critical technologies, and defense indigenization.
Okay, that's a lot of words.
It is, which is why I want to know the mechanics of how to use them. Let's do some cross-questioning. In terms में से strategic autonomy का practical application क्या है इंडिया की foreign policy में?
Practically, it means independent decision-making during geopolitical crisis. For example, India buying S-400 missiles from Russia while simultaneously maintaining deep strategic ties with the US without bowing to pressure or sanctions from either side. It's the freedom to act strictly in your national interest.
Okay, what if I have to define credible minimum deterrence in an exam? अगर exam में credible minimum deterrence define करना हो, तो इसका core essence क्या होगा?
The core essence is maintaining just enough nuclear weapons to guarantee a devastating retaliation if attacked. The minimum part is key. It means India refuses to engage in an expensive arms race, stockpiling thousands of warheads. We just need enough to deter the enemy.
Let's talk about the tech side. Cyber weapons और digital surveillance को emerging technologies umbrella के अंदर कैसे critically evaluate करेंगे?
You evaluate them as non-kinetic warfare. Traditional war destroys physical infrastructure with bombs. Cyber weapons disable power grids and banking systems without a single bullet being fired. They redefine national security.
And what about manufacturing? Public-private partnership keyword defense manufacturing answers को कितना strong बनाता है?
Very strong. It highlights synergy. It shows you understand that while government agencies like DRDO have the scale, private startups bring agility, cost efficiency, and rapid innovation.
Last one on keywords. Nuclear taboo or nuclear deterrence में conceptual difference क्या है? They sound kind of similar.
They are completely different mechanisms. Nuclear deterrence is a strategic threat. It's based on fear of retaliation. Nuclear taboo is a moral and normative restraint. It's the global consensus that using nuclear weapons is fundamentally wrong, which has prevented their use since 1945, independent of military math.
That distinction is incredibly sharp. The real-world impact here is that this vocabulary directly boosts the analytical weight of your GS2 and GS3 answers. So if you're practicing this, pause and practicing. Integrating precise keywords like strategic autonomy heavily elevates the analytical depth of my answers.
And remember, ratta mat maro, understand their contextual application.
In short, These keywords are the foundational building blocks for mastering and articulating complex defense topics.
Perfect. Now that our concepts and vocabulary are locked in, thoda soch lo. How do we actually write this in the exam? Let's tackle our final challenge.
Yes. Topic name, practice question. The broad micro theme here is UPSC GS Mains answer writing application.
Basically, ये एक simulated exercise है. Everything we discussed today has to be structured into a perfect 15-marker blueprint. Think of it like this. Reading tons of books is like collecting bricks, but answer writing is like actually building the house. Without structure, everything just collapses on the paper. That's a great analogy. Let's apply our knowledge practically. The prompt given is a direct analytical statement requiring a multidimensional approach. Here is the question. Defense indigenization is critical for achieving strategic autonomy and strengthening national security. Examine.
Okay, let's break down the core logic and structure. First, the introduction. We need to define and introduce defense indigenization and connect it to the current geopolitical climate.
Then, body part 1 focuses on achievements and government initiatives. This is where you deploy your data. The 1.54 lakh crore production, the 75% budget allocation, IDEX, and positive indigenization lists.
Then body part 2 addresses the challenges and areas requiring attention. We discussed the 27.95% capex limitation, import dependence on aero engines, and R&D fragmentation.
Finally, the conclusion. We conclude with the need for innovation-led self-reliance, showing a forward-looking vision connecting to national economic resilience.
Okay, let's strategize this with some cross-questioning. जब क्वेश्चन का डायरेक्टिव एग्जामिन होता है, तो क्या हमें सिर्फ पॉजिटिव अचीवमेंट्स लिखने चाहिए?
Absolutely not. That's a trap. Examine means you have to probe deeper. You must include the positive achievements, but you're equally required to inspect the underlying challenges and issues.
Got it. For the introduction, डिफेंस इंडिजिनाइजेशन के डेफिनेशन के साथ क्या 1.54 लाख करोड़ वाला रीसेंट स्टैट ऐड करना बेटर रहेगा?
Yes. Starting with data instantly tells the examiner you're updated with current affairs. Data-backed intros always fetch higher marks than generic definitions.
So for body part 1, गवर्नमेंट इनिशिएटिव्स को सिर्फ लिस्ट करें या 2-3 को डिटेल में एक्सप्लेन करें?
Explain how they work. Showing the mechanism proves comprehension.
What about body part 2, the challenges? Import dependence on aero engines का specific example कितना weightage carry करेगा?
Massive weightage. Saying we rely on imports is generic. Specifying aero engines shows administrative awareness and technical specificity.
And finally the conclusion. Conclusion को purely innovation-led self-reliance पर end करने से answer visionary कैसे बनता है?
Because it shifts the narrative from mere manufacturing to R&D leadership. True autonomy isn't just building foreign designs locally. It's owning the intellectual property.
That is a masterclass in structuring. The real-world impact is that this is exactly how you synthesize vast information into a crisp, high-scoring 250-word answer. Now pause and practice saying, I will logically structure my answers with a clear introduction, balanced body, and a visionary conclusion.
A clear intro-body conclusion framework ensures the examiner sees your logical flow without searching for points.
In short, this framework teaches you how to map out all your data, keywords, and analysis into one cohesive, high-scoring exam answer. What an incredibly massive and detailed session. Let's quickly wrap up the core takeaways. अब हमने आज क्या-क्या cover किया? First, the Wassenaar arrangement. The broad micro-theme was multilateral export control regime and emerging tech challenges. We saw how legacy treaties are struggling to regulate dual-use AI and cloud technologies, needing urgent reforms and domain-specific frameworks.
Right.
Second, India's defense industry. Atmanirbharta in defense and manufacturing ecosystem. We analyzed India's explosive growth in exports, the massive 75% budget push for domestic procurement, and the hurdles of R&D fragmentation and aero-engine import dependence. Third, keywords, essential terminology for security and defense. We lock down the exact technical vocabulary required to impress examiners, from strategic autonomy to nuclear deterrence.
Yeah.
And fourth, the practice question, UPSC GS Mains answer writing application. Finally, we mapped out a perfect intro-body conclusion structure to critically examine defense indigenization.
Exactly. But here's something to think about before we leave. We talked a lot about governments today. But as AI continues to evolve faster than any government policy, will the future of global security actually be determined by nation-states or by the massive private tech corporations building these algorithms? थोड़ा सोच लो इस बारे में.
Wow, that's a scary but fascinating thought. The power shifting from nations to tech giants. Keep studying, keep questioning, and we'll see you in the next deep dive. Today our topic name is Quick Facts on Internal Security.
Right.
And the broad micro theme is Understanding India's Internal Security Challenges, Legislation, and Border Management.
Yeah, that's a heavy one.
It is, yaar. I mean, imagine करो एक ऐसा border zone जहाँ smuggling और demographic changes इतने aggressive और fast हो रहे हैं कि government को strictly एक mega high-powered demography mission launch करना पड़े.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right? या फिर सोचो 1967 के एक छोटे से गांव नक्सलबारी से स्टार्ट हुआ एक massive violent armed struggle जो एक टाइम पर आधी कंट्री को पैरालाइज कर चुका था. आज 2025 में आके लिटरली सिर्फ 2 डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स तक सिमट गया है. ये सब एग्जैक्टली कैसे हुआ? एंड मोर इम्पोर्टेंटली, स्टेट पावर और ह्यूमन राइट्स के बीच का लाइन कहाँ ड्रॉ होता है?
Exactly.
आज हम यही सब अनपैक करेंगे. वेरी सरप्राइजिंग फैक्ट्स एंड गोल्डन इनसाइट्स आने वाले हैं, समझे?
बिल्कुल. आज का डीप डाइव बेसिकली एक शॉर्टकट है टू परफेक्टली अंडरस्टैंड 4 critical internal security pillars of India. We are going to completely map out the entire landscape.
I love it. So what's the plan?
तो हम कवर करेंगे फर्स्ट लेफ्ट विंग एक्सट्रीमिज्म यानी LWE का राइज एंड इट्स मैसिव फॉल. सेकंड, द हाईली डिबेटेड आर्म्ड फोर्सेस स्पेशल पावर्स एक्ट,
Famously known as AFSPA 1958.
Yeah, exactly. Third, we will explore the insurgency in Northeast India और वहाँ का, rapidly changing landscape. And finally, the brand new high-powered demography mission.
Okay, awesome.
Transitions एकदम smooth रहेंगे, connecting the dots between policy, security, and human lives. So just sit back, grab a coffee, and absorb.
Awesome. तो start करते हैं हमारे first major pillar से. Let's look at left-wing extremism. So heading is left-wing extremism or LWE.
Right.
This falls right under the broad micro-theme of internal security threats and tribal alienation. So, for those who might be new to the exact mechanics of this, LWE basically एक Maoist या Naxalite movement है. इनका main goal historically democratic state को armed struggle के through overthrow करना रहा है. Sounds extreme, right?
Because it actually is.
Yeah.
They operate on a completely different ideological wavelength.
It is extreme. But the origin story is absolutely fascinating.
Right.
Because it didn't just start in a vacuum. I mean, think about Naxalbari in 1967.
Oh yeah, West Bengal?
Exactly. West Bengal के इस छोटे से गांव से एक चिंगारी उठी थी. It started as a peasant uprising against oppressive landlords. And देखते ही देखते ये एक पूरे रेड कॉरिडोर में कन्वर्ट हो गई across central and eastern India.
It's crazy.
एक hyper-local protest कैसे national security threat बन गया? That's a classic case study in what happens when governance just fails at the grassroots.
Right, when you look at the introduction of this whole issue, it becomes crystal clear कि purely socio-economic deprivation की वजह से बड़ा था.
Yeah.
People didn't just wake up one day and decide to take up arms.
Right.
There is a deep background here driven by what we call Jal Jungle Jameen issues.
Water, forest and land.
Exactly. जब tribal alienation extreme level पर होता है और governance deficits बढ़ते हैं, जब basic rights deny होते हैं, तो ऐसी radical ideologies बहुत जल्दी रूट पकड़ लेती है.
Resource alienation essentially fuels the anger.
बिल्कुल. But here is where the core logic of the state's response shifted.
Right.
Government chup nahi बैठी, and they realized that you cannot simply shoot your way out of an ideological insurgency.
Right. You need a plan.
So, they introduced a multi-pronged approach. First came the National Policy and Action Plan in 2015, and then the real game changer.
Oh, I know this one. The Samadhan strategy.
Yes. It's an acronym that basically acts as a corporate-style turnaround plan for
Oh,
counterinsurgency.
it's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, it stands for smart leadership, aggressive strategy, motivation, actionable intelligence, dashboard-based KPIs.
Wait, dashboards?
Yeah, literally dashboards to track metrics. And then harnessing technology, action plan, and no access to financing. They combine this with police modernization and the civic action program.
Plus special central assistance.
Right.
Wait, I want to jump in here because that sounds great on paper, but the real-world execution is incredibly tough. Challenges abhi bhi hain yaar.
Oh, absolutely.
We are talking about insanely difficult terrain, like the dense forests of Dandakaranya, technology misused by extremists using dark web and drones, a deep historical trust deficit, or illegal arms ki massive availability.
Right.
Yet, despite all this, the real-world impact is just staggering. The latest trend shows LWE violence में 89% reduction आया है from 2010 to 2025.
Which is phenomenal.
Yeah, ये red corridor अब shrink होकर basically 2 districts तक limited है.
And the conclusion here is vital for anyone analyzing security. Bullets alone don't end insurgencies. It is the combination of aggressive development, infrastructure, and smart, intelligence-led policing that brings an insurgency to its endgame.
Okay, this is super critical for our listeners who are prepping for exams. So if I'm writing a GS Paper 3 answer on this, I have a few strategic doubts. Let's dig into the UPSC GS effective mains answer writing perspective.
Sure, मैं बताती हूँ. Ask away.
First thing, अगर एग्जाम में LWA के रूट कॉजेज पर क्वेश्चन आए, तो ये जो इमोशनल फ्रेज है, जल जंगल जमीन, इसको हम टेक्निकल टर्म्स में कैसे फ्रेम करें टू साउंड प्रोफेशनल?
That's a great question. एग्जाम ने आपको इसको रिसोर्स एलियनेशन और गवर्नेंस डेफिसिट के अम्ब्रेला टर्म में लिखना चाहिए.
Okay, resource alienation?
Yeah. You must link it directly to socio-economic deprivation and displacement due to developmental projects without rehabilitation. This gives your answer that mature, administrative tone.
Makes total sense. Second doubt, समाधान स्ट्रैटेजी का थ्योरेटिकल पार्ट तो क्लियर है, पर ये जो सिविक एक्शन प्रोग्राम है, इसका एक्चुअल रियल वर्ल्ड इम्पैक्ट क्या लिखे हम अपने आंसर्स में? Does it actually work?
It absolutely works.
Wow.
Because it bridges the trust deficit. मेंस में आपको लिखना चाहिए कि जब सिक्योरिटी फोर्सेस गन्स छोड़कर एक्चुअल रोड्स बनाती हैं या मेडिकल कैंप्स लगाती हैं रिमोट विलेजेस में, तो लोकल सपोर्ट कट ऑफ हो जाता है LWE से.
Wow.
Yeah, the local youth see the state as a provider, not an oppressor. Force multiplication happens through community goodwill.
Brilliant insight. Third question, and this is about structuring the answer. That massive 89% reduction stat from 2010 to 2025, should I drop that in the introduction to grab attention or save it for the conclusion to show a positive outcome?
Always the introduction.
Really?
हाँ यार, ये एग्जामिनर को तुरंत बताता है कि आप लेटेस्ट 2025 ट्रेंड्स और करंट अफेयर्स से हेवीली अपडेटेड है. बहुत इम्पैक्टफुल स्टार्ट है. इट सेट्स अ कॉन्फिडेंट टोन इमीडिएटली.
Got it. Fourth question. Whenever we talk about the way forward, everyone says mentioning FRA, Forest Rights Act, and PESA is critical. क्यों? Why are these specific legal acts the silver bullet here?
क्योंकि ट्राइबल डेवलपमेंट बिना फॉरेस्ट राइट्स के प्रैक्टिकली पॉसिबल ही नहीं है. इफेक्टिव इम्प्लीमेंटेशन ऑफ FRA strikes at the very root of tribal alienation.
Because they get the land back.
Exactly. It legally solves the Jal Jungle Jameen grievance. If the tribals own the rights to the forest produce, the Maoists have no narrative left to exploit.
Spot on. Final question on this topic. You mentioned difficult terrain as a major challenge earlier. To overcome that specific hurdle, आंसर में क्या specific point add करें?
हमेशा इंटेलिजेंस-लेड पुलिसिंग और टेक्नोलॉजी मल्टीप्लायर का पॉइंट ऐड करो.
Like drones.
Yeah, explicitly mention the use of drones for surveillance in dense forests and the establishment of fortified police stations. Good marks guaranteed.
Perfect framework. Now, for everyone listening, this is a golden sentence for exams. Pause the audio and practice saying LWE violence has seen an 89% reduction driven by the Samadhan strategy and effective FRA implementation. Practice this structure, it will anchor your essay.
In short, this idea shows how addressing tribal alienation directly shrinks the LWE red corridor by replacing grievances with governance.
Okay, quick pause before we move on. If you're finding this breakdown insightful for your notes, please make sure to subscribe and enable notifications right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seriously, yaar, we drop these heavy analysis sessions regularly, and joining our community means you never miss these shortcut frameworks. Cool, na? Alright, let's keep moving. So, with LWE, the government realized they couldn't just use force. They had to build trust.
Right.
But what happens when the state goes the opposite route? What happens when an area is so volatile that sheer military force is legally mandated? That brings us to the elephant in the room.
Exactly. Let's talk about our second heading, Armed Forces Special Powers Act, commonly known as AFSPA, 1958.
Right.
Iska broad micro-theme is heavily centered around security forces powers versus human rights. Briefly define करें तो AFSPA एक law है जो armed forces को disturbed areas में special powers empower करता है, specifically to maintain public order.
And to really understand this, we need a real-life visualization.
हाँ.
Imagine करो एक एरिया जहां insurgency और militant violence इतनी high है कि normal state police उसको control ही नहीं कर सकती. The state machinery has basically collapsed. वहां AFSPA लगाया जाता है.
Right.
The military gets powers to arrest without warrants or even shoot on suspicion to maintain order. पर problem ये है कि इसका prolonged deployment civilians की life को completely change कर देता है, creating a massive, decades-long debate between national security necessity and severe human rights violations.
Which is exactly why the introduction to any AFSPA analysis must note its timeline. AFSPA 1958 से exist करता है, initially brought in to tackle the Naga insurgency.
Okay.
Current coverage mostly parts of Nagaland, Manipur, Assam, Arunachal Pradesh और जम्मू एंड कश्मीर में है. बैकग्राउंड में ये आता है कि स्टेट एंड सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट्स इसको डिस्टर्ब्ड नोटिफाई करती हैं अंडर सेक्शन 3 ऑफ द एक्ट.
Okay.
बट जब मिलिट्री डेकेड्स तक एक सिविलियन एरिया में डिप्लॉयड रहती है, massive human rights concerns surface होते हैं.
Right.
It creates a volatile environment where the youth feel constantly scrutinized. The core logic of checking this absolute power has been heavily debated. अगर हम committees की बात करें, तो the system has tried to course correct.
Definitely.
याद रखना the Jeevan Reddy Committee in 2005, the second ARC, and later the Justice Verma Committee, सबने AFSPA के review या even repeal की बात की है.
Yeah.
The real-world impact and UPSC relevance here lies in how the judiciary stepped in when the executive didn't. You must quote the Supreme Court judgments.
Like which ones?
Like Naga People's Movement 1997, which upheld its constitutionality but added strict do's and don'ts. Then EV-FAM 2016, which was a massive turning point regarding fake encounters in Manipur.
Oh, right. EV-HAM was huge.
और Sebastian Hongre 1984. ये क्लियरली दिखाता है कि जुडिशरी ने हमेशा अकाउंटेबिलिटी डिमांड की है.
Absolutely. The conclusion is unambiguous. The way forward has to be periodic review, stronger oversight mechanisms, massively improved state policing, or community participation.
Right. Status quo, where AFSPA remains indefinitely, is not the answer for a healthy democracy.
Okay, let's put our UPSC GS hats back on. If I'm writing this answer, I have 5 specific questions to refine my arguments. First up, GS paper 2 या 3 में अगर AFSPA का critical analysis आए, तो कौन सी committee quote करना absolute best है?
The Justice BP Jeevan Reddy Committee is the absolute gold standard here.
Got it.
उन्होंने explicitly recommend किया था to repeal AFSPA and insert appropriate provisions in the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act instead.
Ah, okay.
Second ARC को भी parallelly mention कर सकते हो. It adds solid administrative weight to your argument.
Second question. That EV-FAM 2016 judgment you mentioned, answer में इसको quote करने का exact weightage क्या है? Why is it so special?
ये judgment directly accountability establish करता है. The Supreme Court ruled कि army cannot use excessive force even in disturbed areas. And any allegation of a fake encounter requires strict, independent investigation.
Wow.
Yeah, it essentially stripped away the blanket immunity that some thought AFSPA provided. It's a landmark for balancing security with human rights.
That's powerful. Third question. How do I logically link prolonged deployment to human rights violations in a tight paragraph?
Just write कि AFSPA was originally designed as a temporary, extraordinary measure for extraordinary times. Prolonged use creates a severe trust deficit.
Because there is there for too long.
Exactly. It normalizes military presence in civilian spaces, which inherently leads to friction, civilian alienation, and defeats the very purpose of internal security, which relies on public cooperation.
Great phrasing. Fourth question. Way forward mein, everyone talks about improved policing. Is that actually a realistic alternative to the Indian Army?
Yes, exactly. In fact, that is the ultimate goal. State police ka capacity building बहुत ज़रूरी है. The army is trained for conventional warfare and border defense, not crowd control or local crime.
Right.
Once the state police is modernized and capable, the army can retreat to the borders where they actually belong.
Makes total sense. Last question for this section. Mains के conclusion में community participation को कैसे frame करें to sound impactful?
Mention karo ki security is only sustainable when the local community feels ownership of it. Hence, a human rights-based security model is needed. Without the community's trust, no military law can maintain permanent peace. The community has to be a stakeholder, not a suspect.
Brilliant. All right, guys. Pause the audio and practice saying this specific analytical line. Judicial scrutiny through the EVFAM 2016 judgment emphasizes strict accountability in ASPA's prolonged deployment. Rehearse that. It's a perfect thesis statement.
In short, this idea shows how balancing special military powers with human rights oversight is the only key to democratic and sustainable security.
Now, AFSPA की सबसे ज़्यादा complex history North East India से जुड़ी है.
जी.
तो naturally, हमारा next logical stop है वहाँ की insurgency. Let's move to topic 3. Heading is Insurgency in Northeast India.
Right.
इसका broad micro theme है ethnic conflicts, peace accords and connectivity integration. To give a short definition, Northeast India में insurgency basically armed rebellions हैं जो ethnic rivalries, identity crisis और historical governance issues की वजह से Indian state के against start हुए.
Right. And it's crucial to distinguish this from our first topic. LWE primarily ideological था, class struggle and socio-economics. But Northeast is deeply ethnic, identity-based and territorial.
Exactly. We need a real-life anchor here. Recently, हम सबने मटेई कुकी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट देखा मणिपुर में. एक relatively छोटी सी स्टेट में जब कॉम्प्लेक्स एथनिक आइडेंटिटीज, हिस्टोरिकल लैंड क्लेम्स और पोरस बॉर्डर्स क्लैश करते हैं तो सिचुएशन कितनी वायलेंटली वॉलेटाइल हो जाती है.
Yeah, it's really sad.
ये इसका एक रियल टाइम हाईली ट्रेजिक एग्जाम्पल है ऑफ हाउ डेलिकेट द सोशल फैब्रिक इज.
True. Introduction के लिए, you have to outline these exact unique factors. यहाँ major causes हैं ethnic rivalries, porous international borders sharing jungle terrain with Myanmar, FSPA-related alienation over the decades, और historically severe governance and geographical deficits.
राइट.
बैकग्राउंड में हमारे पास मल्टीपल कॉम्प्लेक्स एग्जाम्पल्स हैं. तुमने मेतेई कुकी कॉन्फ्लिक्ट मेंशन किया. उसके अलावा हिस्टोरिकली वी हैव वेरियस NSCN फैक्शंस इन नागालैंड डिमांडिंग ग्रेटर नागालैंड, ULFA इन असम और इवन इंटरस्टेट इश्यूज जैसे असम मिजोरम डिस्प्यूट जो वायलेंस में इरप्ट होते हैं.
But here is where the core logic is changing dramatically in the last decade. Government का push peace और assimilation की तरफ बहुत heavy है. Recent peace measures include massive tripartite agreements like the Bodo Accord, the Karbi-Anglong Agreement, or NLFT agreement in Tripura.
Yeah.
The strategy is to bring armed groups into the mainstream political process. और real-world impact and UPSC relevance की बात करें, तो the ultimate game changer is connectivity as a cure.
Oh, I love that phrase.
Yeah. Answers में quote schemes like Udan for Airways, Vande Bharat और incredible infra marvels जैसे Bogibeel Bridge, Sela Tunnel और Kaladan Multimodal Transport Project. Physical connectivity directly kills psychological insurgency.
Absolutely spot on. Isolated areas ही insurgency का breeding ground होते हैं. So conclusion में way forward क्या होना चाहिए?
What should it be?
It has to be a mix of sustained political dialogue, aggressive infrastructure development, cultural integration with the rest of India, or a human rights-based security approach.
All right, let's break this down for our UPSC GS effective mains answer writing perspective. 5 doubts for you.
Okay, shoot.
First question. Mains में porous borders को insurgency का direct cause कैसे explain करें technically?
Explain करो कि borders porous होने से insurgents को logistical lifeline मिलती है. It enables the smuggling of arms and narcotics and provides safe havens or launch pads across Myanmar and Bangladesh. Geography basically becomes a tactical tool for militant survival and evasion.
Wow, geography as a tactical tool. I love that. Second question. Agreements like the Bodo Accord या Karbi Anglong Agreement को answers में as a success model कैसे use करें?
इन्हें political dialogue और assimilation into the democratic process के concrete examples की तरह लिखो. Highlight how giving them autonomous territorial councils addresses their identity and developmental anxieties without compromising India's sovereignty. It proves armed struggle can end at a negotiation table.
Third question. Infrastructure projects like the Sela Tunnel, what is their direct strategic link to security? Why isn't it just an economic point?
Because it's dual-use infrastructure.
Okay.
Sela Tunnel ensures all-weather, rapid troop movement to the borders, meaning civilian economic boom through trade and tourism, or military readiness to counter external threats, दोनों एक साथ achieve होते हैं. Economic integration naturally reduces militant recruitment.
Makes sense. Fourth question. The Assam-Mizoram dispute involves police forces firing at each other. Insurgency से इसको confuse ना करें, इसे exam में कैसे clarify करें?
Very important distinction. इसे interstate boundary conflicts के under categorize करो. While it's not an insurgency against India, it fuels regional instability. And instability creates a fertile ground and governance vacuum that militant factions exploit. It's a governance issue that dangerously escalates into a security threat.
Final question for the Northeast topic. Conclusion में cultural integration phrase क्यों इतना important है? Isn't physical integration enough?
क्योंकि Northeast का alienation purely physical नहीं रहा है. It has been deeply psychological due to historical neglect and racial discrimination in mainland India. Cultural integration bridges that empathy gap. Building roads is physical, but building mutual respect is what sustains peace permanently.
That is profound. All right, listeners, pause your audio and practice saying this exact line for your conclusions. Peace accords like the Bodo Accord, combined with dual-use infra like the Bogibeel Bridge, are fundamentally solving the Northeast insurgency. Come on, practice saying it out loud.
In short, this idea shows how physical connectivity and political dialogue are effectively neutralizing long-standing ethnic conflicts in the Northeast.
Now, you mentioned porous borders earlier, and usse ek aur massive problem aati hai, infiltration and demographic shifts. And that seamlessly brings us to our final highly crucial topic.
Yes.
Heading is High-Powered Demography Mission. Iska broad micro-theme focuses entirely on illegal immigration and border management security. To define it simply, ये mission एक highly targeted modern initiative है, जिसका main objective illegal immigration और infiltration को permanently address करना है, using tech and policy.
Yes. And it's vital to recognize that illegal immigration is not just a minor border management issue anymore.
Right.
It has evolved into a full-scale national security threat.
Think about a real-life micro-story here. Imagine एक border district in Assam or West Bengal, जहां पिछले 10 साल में population demographics completely flip हो गए हैं, due to unchecked silent infiltration.
Oh yeah, it happens.
इससे सिर्फ local culture या electoral math ही change नहीं होता. Resource friction पैदा होती है and national security risk में आती है, due to untraceable populations. ये new demography mission उसी demographic shift को रोकने का high-tech आंसर है. इंट्रोडक्शन में यही सेट करना जरूरी है कि इलीगल इमिग्रेशन इज फंडामेंटली एन इंटरनल सिक्योरिटी नाइटमेयर.
Exactly. अगर बैकग्राउंड देखें, the associated security concerns with this demographic shift are highly dangerous. We are talking about sleeper cell terror links, massive human trafficking networks, artificial demographic imbalances leading to ethnic clashes, or large-scale smuggling of fake Indian currency and narcotics.
That's a huge list of threats.
Yeah, it is. The core logic here is acknowledging the threat and realizing the system is stepping up. We have the upcoming Immigration and Foreigners Act 2025, the NRC process, CAA, and crucially, CIBMS, which is the Comprehensive Integrated Border Management System. Add to this border fencing or foreigners' tribunals.
For real-world impact and UPSC relevance, this is pure gold for the GS Paper 3 Border Management section. आपको अपने आंसर्स में वे फॉरवर्ड मेंशन करना होगा और वहां आउटडेटेड आइडियाज नहीं चलेंगे.
Right.
You need modern solutions, smart surveillance, robust biometric databases linked nationally, एक dedicated national refugee law or strict bilateral repatriation agreements. Conclusion is simple, physical fences alone अब enough नहीं है. हमको smart, tech-driven border architecture और clear legal definitions चाहिए.
The paradigm has totally shifted from physical walls to virtual, legal, and digital walls. Let's do the cross-questioning for this final topic to solidify the exam strategy.
Ready. 5 final questions. First, Immigration and Foreigners Act 2025 का mention अपने current affairs answer में क्या impact डालेगा compared to citing old laws?
ये instantly दिखाएगा कि आप latest policy formulation से updated हो. The old Foreigners Act of 1946 is outdated. Mentioning the 2025 Act acts as the modern legal framework tackling sophisticated infiltration, showing the examiner you understand the evolution of the law.
Second question. CIBM sounds like a heavy acronym. इसको technical term में कैसे define करें exam में without sounding vague?
इसको technically technology-driven virtual fencing बोलो. It integrates thermal sensors, underground ground sensors, radars, and infrared cameras to secure areas where physical fencing is impossible due to harsh riverine or mountainous terrain.
Wow, so it's a digital fence.
Exactly. It replaces human patrolling limits with technology.
Excellent definition. Third question. If I only have 50 words, demographic imbalance को national security threat कैसे prove करें logically?
In short, mention करो कि artificial demographic shifts drastically alter local electoral politics, lead to severe resource friction over land and jobs, trigger ethnic clashes between natives and migrants, and create alienated pockets which serve as soft grounds for radicalization. It destabilizes local governance completely.
Very precise. Fourth question. Why is everyone demanding a national refugee law in the way forward section? What's the gap currently?
The major gap is that currently, India relies on ad hoc executive orders and the outdated 1946 Act.
Okay.
हमारे पास genuine refugees, fleeing persecution, और illegal economic immigrants के बीच clear legal distinction नहीं है. एक formal national refugee law इस ambiguity को clear करेगा, making deportation of illegals legally sound and internationally defensible.
Brilliant point. Final question of the podcast. Bilateral repatriation agreements theoretically sound great, but इनका practical bottleneck क्या होता है और इसे answer में कैसे लिखें to show maturity?
देखो, the biggest practical bottleneck is that source countries like Bangladesh or Myanmar often flat out refuse to accept them back, demanding absolute proof of citizenship, which undocumented migrants don't have.
Oh man.
So diplomatic leverage is heavily needed. ये point challenges में ज़रूर add करना to show a realistic, grounded understanding of international geopolitics.
Absolutely fantastic. Okay, listeners, pause one last time and practice saying, this CIBMS and a dedicated national refugee law are vital components for tackling demographic imbalances caused by unchecked infiltration. Say it out loud, lock it in.
In short, this idea shows how cutting-edge tech, surveillance, and comprehensive new legal frameworks are essential to secure our borders from the complex threat of illegal immigration.
Wow, क्या deep dive था आज का. थोड़ा सोच लो, in just this session, हमने 4 massive security pillars crack कर लिए in extreme detail. Let's do a quick, energetic final recap of our broad micro-theme, understanding India's internal security challenges, legislation, and border management.
Yes, here is the ultimate summary of what we covered. First, internal security threats and tribal alienation through LWE. We saw an 89% reduction in Maoist violence, all thanks to the corporate-style Samadhan strategy and legally tackling Jal Jungle Zameen issues through FRA.
Right.
Second, security forces powers versus human rights regarding AFSPA. We mapped the constant tug-of-war between disturbed area control and human rights accountability, closely monitored by the Jeevan Reddy Committee and landmark SC judgments like EFAM 2016.
Yeah, that was heavy.
Third, ethnic conflicts, peace accords, and connectivity in the Northeast. We are transitioning from porous borders and ethnic rivalries to mainstream peace through the Bodo Accord and killing insurgency via connectivity projects like the Sela Tunnel.
Connectivity as a cure.
Exactly. And fourth, illegal immigration and border management security via the new demography mission. We learnt that fighting infiltration requires shifting from physical fences to virtual ones, using CIBMS, biometric databases, and updating our legal framework with the Immigration and Foreigners Act 2025.
Exactly. सब कुछ कितनी ब्यूटिफुली कनेक्ट हो गया. Force versus trust, physical borders versus digital borders. अब एक final provocative thought तुम्हारे लिए, just to keep those gears turning. अगर हम borders को totally CIBMS से digitize कर दें and biometric tracking perfect कर लें, तो क्या हम illegal immigration को literally zero कर सकते हैं? या फिर human desperation and survival instincts हमेशा कोई ना कोई नया unexpected रास्ता ढूंढ लेंगे? Think about it. See you in the next deep dive. Keep learning.